Well, good morning and welcome to City Hall. We're going to get started with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin Hanel is the pastor of Beverly Hills Baptist Church. He'll lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Greiner if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But would everyone please stand?
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day that you blessed us with. We pray, Lord, that as the City Council meets this morning, that you would give them the wisdom to make the decisions that you would have them to make. Father, we know that your word says that you appoint leaders to be ministers of good. And so, Father, we just pray that you would help them to make the decisions that would be better for our community. And Father, we love you, we praise you, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a few presentations to begin this morning's meeting, and I know we have some guests from Verizon. I'll ask our friends from Verizon to come forward. They have a presentation they want to make to the city of Oklahoma City. And we'll welcome Christy Crum, who's the president of the South Region. Are the rest of your employees staying seated? Are they a little more camera shy than you are?
Yes,
all right,
yes.
well, I'm going to hand you the microphone.
Okay,
and you
great.
Can explain what
Perfect.
this procedure is about.
All right, great. They're not shy, but I'll take us through this presentation, so thank you very much. So first of all, good morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. And on behalf of my entire team, we would like to thank the city of Oklahoma City for all of your continued efforts and innovation and really creating a smart city. So a smart city, for those of you who are not aware, are popping up nationwide, and they are cities who leverage technology to really move people forward, citizens, and also make cities more efficient and more productive. And as a president of a technology company, I typically have to explain to citizens and communities and businesses what technology can do, and I typically point to the city of Oklahoma as things that have gone. Now, I will tell you that I'm not the only one, and my team is not the only one. Oklahoma City has been recognized by a number of folks. Recently, in 2014, the National Geographic recognized Oklahoma City as one of the top 50 smartest cities in the country, which is an incredible honor and really speaks to how you've grasped technology. And while I won't go through all of the other awards that prove all of the technological and innovative things that you've done, I would like to talk about some of the solutions that have been implemented in Oklahoma City, because I think it's important for all of the citizens and actually all of the work that you've done. So actually the Oklahoma City government app, if you're not aware, very user-friendly app that allows citizens to report against code violations. So if cars are left abandoned, if there's parking violations, debris, citizens can use their smartphones to actually report this, let people know on a map where it is, and get all of the city information. It's a great app. The other thing that I'd like to point out is the Big Belly solar compactors. So these trash compactors, now we have 9 across the city of Oklahoma City. They actually allow for 5 times the amount of trash as regular compactors. They allow for all of the recycling. But what's really great is they have connectivity to them. And so when they're approaching capacity, maintenance is actually called and alerted, and they can come empty the trash compactors. What this means is that you're not rolling a truck to come empty a compactor if it's not full, or when it is full, the city is not overfilled with trash and a truck needs to run. So great work there. And then in terms of Verizon, we have had the opportunity to work with Oklahoma City on a number of solutions. And I personally want to thank you for being included in that vision and for the work that you've done that have really improved efficiencies in the lives of your citizens here. So some of the work that's been done is the police and fire departments now have a single point of connection within their vehicles. This allows you to have better emergency response times. The city departments, historically, they had to come back to a desk to be able to report back what they're seeing. Now, in real time, they can actually put this information in the system and make it available to citizens and public departments, which saves days for citizens and the departments. The public works. All of your many traffic light intersections now have a Verizon connection in them, which allows for better forecasting. And in the event that there is some type of city event or even emergency, they can control traffic on the click of a dime. So very quick there. And then all of the water, all of your booster pump stations are now connecting, allowing for better distribution and planning. And the Atoka pipeline is actually connected and allows for leak detection and measuring the flow the entire way. So great work there. As well as transit. So I know the transit cities, now they have 2 connections on them. One connection allows for better dispatching and GPS connectivity, but the other allows citizens to now connect while they're using the transit to Wi-Fi. The other part, parks, great work there. We now have centralized irrigation monitoring. So we were discussing citizens would typically get frustrated if we watered the lawn right after a rain. Those can now be monitored remotely and changed remotely, so saving our resources or making sure that we're actually watering when necessary. And then the Skydance Bridge, many of you know that it's lighted up. Well, that's connectivity that allows you to light that up and change the colors to allow the city to promote what's going on. So when the thunder is in town, it can have thunder colors. So we hope to encourage many other metropolitan areas to be as forward-thinking as Oklahoma City. And while I didn't cover all of the work done by Oklahoma City and certainly all of the forward-thinking thoughts that you have, we do want to, commend you for the work that you've done here in Oklahoma City, and we certainly appreciate it. And we at Verizon like to reward cities who have been forward-thinking. And on behalf of Verizon and my entire team, we would like to award the City of Oklahoma City with the Verizon Smart City Award. So thank you for all of your efforts there.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Let's show our appreciation. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Okay, take that back. We pass this to the council so they can take a look at it up close. All right, next up, September is Adult Literacy Month, and we have Becky Odell and some of her friends. So why don't everybody come up forward? Yeah, come on up. We have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it as we get settled.
Whereas September is National Literacy Month, and whereas adult literacy programs benefit the community by helping individuals experience an enhanced quality of life, contributing to Oklahoma City's dynamic workforce. Whereas Community Literacy Centers of Oklahoma City was established as community learning centers in 1987. Throughout Oklahoma County, community literacy centers provide vital education services free of charge to adults challenged by their inability to read. Whereas through basic literacy classes, English as a second language classes, and volunteer tutoring, community literacy centers contribute to the overall well-being of the community. Whereas community literacy centers partner with local corporations, churches, schools, and other service providers to reach students across Oklahoma County. Whereas in 2007, community literacy centers became certified through the Oklahoma Standards of Excellence program. And since its founding, community literacy centers have served over 37,000 adults, contributing to their mental well-being and empowering them to enjoy an enhanced quality of life through learning to read. Now therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim the month of September 2015 as Adult Literacy Month in Oklahoma City.
37,000 people have gone through this program. Let's show our appreciation.
I would like to thank you, Mayor, thank you, City Council, for having us and for this proclamation. Just some tidbits of information. Currently in Oklahoma City, there are approximately 150,000 adults who cannot read. Understand that these are normal individuals who contribute to our society, but they can empower our city in much greater ways if they have the ability to read. Maybe they slipped through the cracks, maybe their family situation dictated that they didn't have some of the opportunities. And that's what we're all about, is just providing adults with an opportunity to learn to read, which makes a stronger Oklahoma City and makes a stronger state.
All right, what do we all need to do? How can the people individually help?
You know, we would love, we're a nonprofit. We rely on grants and foundation donations, individual private donations. You can look us up. We have a web page where you can donate on there, learn more about our programs, but we also need to partner with community organizations, businesses that can provide tutors, who can provide classrooms, and sometimes just provide opportunities for us to provide additional classrooms.
Right, great. Well, thank you. Let's show our appreciation one more time. You bet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for putting this all together. Thank you. It's a great project. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Thank you, sir. You bet. September is also Senior Center Month, and I know we have some people from our Parks Department here and some of our employees. Let's see, Doug Cupper, David Birch, Teresa Thompson, Cheryl Baker, Ona Foster, Carolyn Waddell, and Kathy Parks, and anybody else that's come along to help us celebrate our wonderful senior centers this week, or this month. Let's have the proclamation read by the clerk, and we'll get settled down here.
Whereas the National Council on Aging annually recognizes September as National Senior Center Month and has established Celebrate Life at Your Senior Center as this year's theme. Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society who invest their wisdom and experience to enrich the lives of younger generations. Whereas every day, over 11,000 senior centers across America serve more than 1 million older adults, offering an engaging array of opportunities to help them live more fulfilling lives. The City of Oklahoma City operates the Woodson Park Senior Activity Center, located at 3401 South May Avenue, and the Will Rogers Senior Activity Center, located at 3501 Pat Murphy Drive. Whereas through a variety of services, programs, and activities, Oklahoma City senior centers empower older citizens to contribute to the health and well-being of themselves and others. Whereas Oklahoma City senior centers also serve as catalysts for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of older residents. Whereas Oklahoma City senior centers affirm the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older persons by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping into their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community. Now therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the City of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim the month of September 2015 as Senior Center Month in Oklahoma City, and he calls upon all citizens and public officials to recognize the special contributions of Senior Center participants and the efforts of the staff and volunteers who work every day to enhance the well-being of older citizens in our community.
Let's show our appreciation to the seniors who participate at our senior centers. And Doug, I'll give you the microphone and let you tell us more about it.
Appreciate it, Mayor. I just want to commend all the folks that are standing up here in front of you today. They provide for quality programming at our two senior centers. And Chris Hamilton oversees the Recreation Division, and his programming staff come up with some dynamic ideas, field trips for the seniors to go on, let alone other activities such as the fine arts. They do plays and things along those lines as well. And coming up on September 15th, the Will Rogers facility will be giving out, or having a free health assessment day at their center to, so come out and find out how healthy you are and how you can get involved with some of the great activities that happen at the Woodson and the Will Rogers facilities. And we appreciate the mayor and the city council for designating September as Senior Center Month. Thank you.
And I know our staff is headed over to Will Rogers. I was told this morning there's line dancing, tap dancing, and there was one other activity. Was that? Jewelry making. Just examples of what's going on at our senior centers, both south and north in Oklahoma City. Let's show our appreciation one more time. Senior Center Month in Oklahoma City. Thank you. We have a fairly lengthy council agenda this morning. We'll get started with the president of the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, Roy Williams, going to come by and give his economic development update. Roy, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager, thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. In light of your agenda, I'll be brief, only have maybe 4 areas to touch on, and certainly would take any questions if anybody has any. First thing I want to mention is the Innovation District. You've read a lot about that. We're extremely optimistic about what's going on as it relates to that, the potential that we have to really energize that geographic region, which currently is defined by the Oklahoma Health Science Center area, as well as over to Automobile Alley to the west, and the ripple effects that all of that will have across the community. We have a working relationship, and we're in constant communication with the Brookings Institution, as well as the Project for Public Spaces, about how we can best work together to really identify the synergies that are not only there, but what we can bring to that area in a very quickly, timely manner. What we learn in this process, we believe, is going to be extremely important for us, but it also has international implications, because we're going to be working with cities and the experiences they've had across the entire world to make these kind of centers more creative and spawning more and more entrepreneurship. In other words, what we're trying to do is create more places where people can live, work, play, and learn in one location. We have a number of partners in this process. The Oklahoma Health Center Foundation, the Chamber, the Alliance for Economic Development, and the Presbyterian Health Foundation are the primary partners, but we also have support from the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation and the University of Oklahoma Health Science Center. And I think with the recent announcement, you tend to see what we're talking about, and that was the announcement about an international firm acquiring Cytovance, which is actually in there, $250 million investment. And the intent of that is to really further the expansion of Cytovance and keeping Cytovance in our community. So along with that, along with the progress of the GE research facility, this shows what the potential of that district is. So we're excited about moving forward on this project. Second thing I wanted to mention was the county jail. It's always an interesting topic to talk about. I served as a member of the most recent committee that looked at that, the task force, and the reason I did was because our leadership believes this is a very important issue in our community. At the same time, though, we don't want to just build a building. We want a solution that addresses, obviously, the physical problems, but also comprehensively addresses our community needs as it relates to the pipeline of the jail. So I'm talking about stronger rehabilitation effort programming, consistent sentencing, improvements in judicial processes, and without a doubt, the focus on mental illness and improving treatment. We're encouraged by the conversations we're having with you, conversations we're having with leadership throughout the metro area, and with the county itself about the shared interest in taking this very important step and moving forward. Our chairman, David Rainbolt, chairman of the board, says it best with the comment he said, and I quote, "We don't want to be the last city in America to build a 20th century jail. We can do better than that," unquote. So I think you all agree with that. The third thing I want to mention is sort of the economic environment. It would be remiss not to mention sort of what's going on in our environment right now. Obviously, you all know we're very conditioned to the forces that the energy cycles play in our community, and the drop in oil prices are certainly creating pressures in our economy. But fortunately, we've been working diligently on diversification, specifically in the bioscience sector, the aerospace sector, and even the hospitality industry sector. These have all reduced some of the economic pressures from the energy cycle that we're in. The other thing is what the city has done, and that's the continued investment in infrastructure, continually putting more and more capital expenditures into the construction sector, and that helps our numbers as well. Unfortunately, statewide, there are stronger impacts, both to the state's budget, as has been in the media recently, and also to smaller communities across rural Oklahoma, where the energy production plays a much more higher role in their employment figures and their economic impact. So where we're seeing it in the metro area from the energy downside is their participation and contribution to philanthropy, as well as their support of nonprofit organizations. Those seem to be the areas that we are impacted most by. So we're going to continue to work closely with you on projects that continue to diversify our economy and stabilize our growth potential. The last thing I want to mention is Boeing Tinker Aerospace. I mentioned that aerospace has been one of the highlights of our efforts toward diversification. I want to share a little bit about Boeing's continued growth and plans. Last month, the mayor, myself, several others of our staff, and some other community leaders went to Seattle and made a presentation to Boeing employees who were considering relocation to Oklahoma City, because this last project is about 900 jobs from Seattle. Boeing's employment is growing here at a very, very rapid pace. And in Seattle, we were met with a very welcoming reception from employees who were considering relocation here. So that is good, and that's a good sign to Boeing. Several of you also were recently in attendance at the companies celebrating the groundbreaking of their new 290,000 square foot facility, which really is a state-of-the-art laboratory space. This is a research facility, and it's intended to serve not only the military needs of research, but also some commercial projects. And it's a sign of Boeing's continued confidence in our market area and our employment sector. They additionally made an announcement that wasn't so highly visible, and that was the relocation of some senior management from St. Louis. This is almost a headquarters type relocation, and it is very important to their company because now we become a very focal point of their administrative side, and that reinforces the importance of the Tinker Sustainment Center here. We've witnessed a series of changes over the last 7 years as Tinker has gone through this whole modernization and process improvement programs, and as a result, we've seen companies like Boeing grow, we've seen Northrop Grumman, and a number of other suppliers who are coming into our market and scaling up very significantly. So they will bring skilled workers, but they will also rely on our market to provide it. So I'll conclude with that, Mayor. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Questions for Roy on the economic development report? Yeah, Ed.
Can I ask just about the county jail, specifically maybe if you could touch on 3 aspects of it. One is I'm wondering if at some point in the process, I mean, you've served on this committee, and I know our city manager must have served on 3 or so, plus we've had an election that lost 80-20, but I mean, it's a lot of years of, I'm wondering if at some point there can be an itemized listing of exactly how the money be proposed to be spent. I mean, a 1/2 cent sales tax, which has been floated in perpetuity, would be a significant amount of money, but I've never really seen, nor I don't think as a city manager or anybody been able to provide an itemized listing of how that money being proposed to be spent? Second is, do you think at some point in the process there might be additional oversight of how that money would be spent? For the city's 1 cent sales tax with maps, we might have disagreements about how the money is going to be spent, but we really don't once we commit to this $10, $20, $30 million allocation, we all know it's going to be spent on that because we've got subcommittees, advisory boards, maps department, all kinds of oversight. But when I look at the county, I don't see a corollary. I don't see something. And third, if you could talk about, you touched on it, which I appreciate, just the big picture of how we address mental health and substance abuse addiction in the city, which is at crisis levels. We have about the second highest of any state in America in terms of mental health incidents, but only spend about 46th among states per capita. And we just simply don't have the facilities. The private sector hasn't been able to come up with the facilities to adequately treat mental health and addiction. One thing that's interesting for me, for physicians, of which about 10 to 15% have some chemical dependency, dentists, surgeons, physicians, we've abandoned a long time ago any kind of 30-day program because we did studies 20 years ago where we saw that the success rate for 90-day programs was so much higher than 30-day programs. So currently there's no program in America that a physician could do just 30 days, not Betty Ford or Meadows or any place in America. And yet Oklahoma City, which has 1 million people in the greater metro area, has no 90-day programs, not one, for physicians or anyone else. Insurance companies have mandated that they'll only spend for 30 days, even though we know that doesn't really work. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what do we do when the private sector is unable to come up with these facilities? Government is spending among the least amount in the country, and that seems to be driving a lot of the issues with the county jail. What can we do? What can the chamber do? What kind of partnership to fill that gap?
Well, you are raising the issues that our leadership is concerned about too. I think to capsulize, I guess, a response to your comments is, we refer to the pipeline that feeds people into the county jail. And if you don't look at that pipeline and understand it and try to address it, all you do is continue what we're seeing today, and that is putting people and incarcerating people sort of no matter what the offense is, whether it's violent or nonviolent, whether it's drugs, whether it's mental issues or whatever. So that's what we're trying to do is to really understand the complexity of that pipeline and how do you impact it. Whether there's legislative issues that need to be addressed, whether there's internal processes, whether there's judicial issues that need to be addressed, sentencing issues that need to be addressed, how you deal with these, and not only what the rules are, but the processes, because there's so many different individuals who play some sort of role into how people get from being perhaps arrested or picked up till they end up incarcerated. And so until we kind of understand that and figure out, can we really reduce the size of incarceration? Until you answer that question, you can't really design a building, and you can't answer the question, how much money you need. So if you're not going to make systemic changes, then it's pretty easy to decide how big of a building you're going to lock people up with. But if you're going to make systemic changes, you're going to really change that population and what that population needs too. So we can't really answer your question about budgets and all that because I don't think we're there. I don't think we know how much it's going to cost to build a building and operate that building, because there maybe needs to be money to operate mental illness treatment or drug and alcohol abuse. And until that's better understood, it's really, we think, very premature to talk about bond issues, sales taxes, and all that kind of stuff. The oversight you mentioned, that's critical. It's mandatory. Our voters now feel that without oversight, as you all know in maps and all that kind of stuff, people are just not going to vote for public expenditures. They expect that. So there's going to have to be oversight put into place. There's going to have to be private engagement in getting more people involved in that process. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question because your question's pretty complex.
No, that was perfect. So you're looking, that's perfect. You're looking at it globally
Yeah,
and
we're not trying to
holistically.
figure out how to build a building. We're trying to figure out what goes on inside that building, how do people get in that building, and how do we address that?
Yeah.
That's part of it. And at the end of the day, yeah, there's probably got to be some facilities built, but we don't yet know what those facilities are.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, Roy, thank you for coming. Go
Gordon,
ahead.
let me add one thing. I so much appreciated David Rainbow's comment about
Yeah, he kind of nailed
what
it.
we ought to be doing. And also, I am very, very pleased that the Chamber's support is going behind a broader solution. I just think all too often, and I think that was what was wrong with that proposal, it just looked at one aspect of it. In the city, we've done some things to reduce the number of people that we send to the jail. We've changed our process in our municipal court system from sending people. We've reduced our participation in that overcrowding process by a substantial amount in the last fiscal year. But I so much appreciate the Chamber's view and taking a broader view of it, because it's much broader than building a building, because that's a never-ending process. We'll never solve that problem if our answer is just lock them up.
We've also had engagement and interest from the state, because when you look at how does all this play out, the city of Oklahoma City provides the largest population in the county jail. The county jail provides the largest population in the State Department of Corrections. So what we do here has a lot of impact.
Well, it ties to a comment I made a couple of weeks ago at a council meeting, and that is that I think all too often these projects are an up or down kind of thing based on a very, very slim view of the problem. And my concern is that the state really has kind of abrogated their responsibility in this area. And if we're going to build a better community, it's going to take different people as players in the 21st century than have been players in the past. The city's going to have to be a player. The chamber's going to have to be a player. We're going to have to look at the mental health problem as a problem that we just don't point at the legislature and say, the legislature, go fix it. If they're not going to do it, or they don't do it, or we've got to do it, because it's just a cancer on the side of what's going on in the entire community. So I appreciate it.
Okay. David, do you want to say something? Okay.
I just want to thank the Chamber for getting active as it relates to the county jail. One issue that I think we all need to take a look at as we talk about building a new county jail and possibly adding some needed services. We also have to talk about the accountability from the standpoint of once an inmate gets into the facility, what happens? Because I'm tired of getting the phone calls about inmates getting hurt in the county jail. So I think issue that needs to be added on to would be body cameras for jail staff. Because you look at all the different lawsuits that has been filed against the county, it deals with some type of somebody either got injured or killed or however. So I think body cameras for the sheriff deputies would go a long way for us accountability. Thank you.
David?
Well, just to throw in my perspective on the county jail, the one thing that I was concerned about was the lack of discussion when it came to financing. I think the points that have already been made that it's a much bigger problem certainly are very important, and I agree with that. We do need to look beyond just the cost of raising money. But when it comes back to raising the money, I never heard a discussion as to the various alternatives that the committee may have looked at or that the county may have looked at. I believe that property taxes should be looked at and a good explanation as to why they do not provide the appropriate source of funding for a new jail and new mental health institution should be a requirement for the county to come forward from a selfish standpoint, well, let me back up and say this. This is a long-term capital project. Property taxes are most closely aligned with that type of a investment. So it just makes sense from my perspective. Then from a more selfish perspective, the city looks to sales tax as its basically, I'm going to use the word main source, but in some instances, the only source of revenue we have to operate. And this just puts more pressure on our ability, for example, if we were to try to go back to the voters and ask for another MAPS program or some other possible need as we go further into our discussions as it relates to a regional transit system. Granted, we could look at other sources, and we will. We as a body tend to look at all available sources, unlike the lack of information we got from the county as if that was the only source they looked at. So that was my big concern, and I hope if you get to participate going forward, you would share that concern from our perspective. Then if I may shift to two other items that you brought out, Roy. First of all, the Innovation District. I think that's going to have a very important, very positive impact on the city. When we look to examples that have already developed in the area, in the cities of Boston, St. Louis, Baltimore, and a few of the other cities, but those three in particular I'm very familiar with, they've been so successful in attracting new research centers as a result of creating and developing that innovation district. I hope we can reach out and convince OU and OSU to become partners in this process. And I know OU has been very instrumental in the research, but it's mainly been in the health care industry. I think we've got a great example for additional research facilities. I know there's friction. They'd like to keep everything at the Norman campus. But now that we have GE's research center in the area of energy, it would make sense for OU's energy center to at least have part of its research facilities here in Oklahoma City. Same for OSU in a variety of industries, whether it's agriculture or engineering or any of the other disciplines that they are so strong in. Finally, in the area of economic development, it seems to me that one of the common issues I hear as far as when we are not successful in bringing in a new business or relocation, it has to do with our lack of available sites when we compare Oklahoma City to other locations throughout the country. And I would hope, it would be nice if the private sector took that responsibility and said, hey, we're going to make these investments so when a new opportunity comes along, we're going to be ready. That hasn't occurred, so I would hope that maybe the city could, along with the chamber, look at creating some kind of public-private joint venture to create sites that are available when a company decides to relocate. It's hard to replace a company like Boeing bringing in so many high-paying jobs. I mean, that does so much for a community. If we could get another, not to put pressure on the chamber, but another one or two of those each year, that would be great.
2 a year would be great. If you could do
two a year. And so I think to be able to accomplish that,
I hope there's not a motion on that.
we would, I think we need more available sites. And I think we're prepared or willing to at least look into that to see what could be done if the private sector would be willing to look and see if there's anything we could do jointly to help us prepare as far as available sites for future economic development opportunities.
And I would just comment that, when you look at a city of 620 square miles, you sort of think sites are non-issues, but real estate is not a site. Real estate is a piece of land. And when we're talking with companies, they're looking for sites. And sites mean they have infrastructure, water, sewer, utilities, gas, technology, streets, roads, sometimes even rail. Well, we don't have major international firms who do industrial park development here. So a lot of our competitors do. So we have very, very limited sites that tomorrow someone could start construction on and build an office, warehouse, customer service center. And it's something that is probably one of the biggest causes of us losing projects, is we don't have a place to put them. We don't have existing space. We don't have speculators in our market who build on a spec basis. So when a company comes in, we can't say, oh yes, we have 5 warehouses of 400,000 square feet, or we have 100,000 square foot office building ready. We don't have those products. And companies come here and they want to see those products because in other markets they do. And they're usually very time sensitive. So a lot of companies don't want to wait for things to be custom built for them. They want to make a decision and pull the plug. So our market does suffer from available, ready to build on sites and product in the market ready.
And I think that's something that we could at least look into to see if we could somehow work to overcome that, especially when you take into consideration our overall low cost of operations here. We've got a great work ethic, great workforce, and now just today we hear how the Oklahoma City Public Schools test scores, especially in the area of mathematics, have improved. Many times these new manufacturing jobs require skills that 10, 20, 30 years ago just weren't necessary. And to see the city and the city schools improving in a better educated workforce, I just hate to lose out just because we don't have an available site, given we tend to score very high in all the other components. So, thank you.
Mark?
Just briefly back on the county jail for a second, and you talk about looking at the pipeline and examining the pipeline, and you talk about fundamental changes made. We'd have a 21st century building as opposed to a 20th century building. I appreciate David's comments on that. I guess the one question I would have is it fair to say that the committee took a look at what other cities have done when they've been under, had the Department of Justice looking at them and looking at their system? Did we look at other cities that have successfully made these changes and made these examinations into the pipeline, et cetera?
No, it was a very narrow focus. In fact, I think this was the 5th committee that has looked at this, and the scope of this committee was very, very narrowly defined. So no, that was not looked at.
Right, but there are some models out there.
There are.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Roy, appreciate all the good news you've passed along in this report.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, let's see. We're still on item 3 of the council agenda. We have a series of appointments in items C, D, E, and F. I'll look for a motion. All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Item G would pay for my travel expenses to attend the fall leadership meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Baltimore. I'll also note that next year's fall leadership meeting will be here in Oklahoma City at a date to be determined. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Is there some reason that we'll be here in Oklahoma City?
Because I get to determine where it's going to be. And I've chosen Oklahoma City for that 2016 meeting. All right, item 4, the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item 4A is to receive the journal for August 18th, and item 4B is to approve the journal for August 4th. Is there a motion? Move the item. All right, comments or questions on the journal? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And then item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, several this morning, starting on page 21. Page 21, under item 9A4, PC 10405. The applicant has requested that the item be deferred until the September 15th council meeting. The applicant is requesting additional time to discuss the request with Councilman Greenwell. On page 22, under item 9A11, SPUD 829, Councilperson Salyer requested that this item be deferred until September 15th. Additional protest has been submitted on this item. Page 23, item 9B1, SPUD 825, the applicant has requested that this item be deferred until the September 29th meeting. And then on page 27, under item 9L1, item B, 6209 South Land, we ask that that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Item E, 1124 North Woodward Avenue, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item G, 3234 Northwest 12th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item L, 430 Southeast 25th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item Q, 1401 Southwest 65th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item R, 512 Northwest 88th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Moving to item 9M1, item F, 1124 North Woodward Avenue, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item L, 430 Southeast 25th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Moving to page 28, 1401 Southwest 65th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. And finally, item T, 512 Northwest 88th Street, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured.
All right, any other requests? Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we have a revocable permit request on item 6A, and this is from Rugged Races LLC to host the Rugged Maniac 5K on October 3rd. Is there anybody here representing this event today? Yeah, come on forward. We will need your name and address for the record, please.
Roger Skeen, 3501 Northeast 10th, Oklahoma City. And we're very excited to be hosting the Rugged Races event. They're a national event that is sponsored by Mark Cuban with Shark Tanks. They produce events nationally, and they've chosen Oklahoma City and our site as one of their events.
Terrific. And tell me more about the event. What is it?
It's a non-traditional 5K. It's there are obstacles that the runners will go under, over, and through, and at the end of the event, there's usually a little bit of a party. There's some bands and things that encourages people to hang out, socialize, and enjoy the place.
Yeah. When you're using a fairly rugged part of the river, if you're at Northeast 10th and Sunny Lane.
Yeah, we have between our property and the city property, we're developing an infrastructure that I think some of the national chains are looking at this part of the city to bring in. Some of the larger events. So we've been working hard at cleaning it up, creating trails and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds great. John, it's in Ward 7. You want to make the motion?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes on item 6A. Passed unanimously. Thank you. And item 6B is a series of revocable right-of-way permits, and we have people that have signed up to speak. I'll ask people to keep their comments as brief as possible. We have a long agenda today, and I don't want it to get us too far behind early. But our first request is for an event to be held on September 12th. It's the Alzheimer Association's Oklahoma chapter holding the Walk to End Alzheimer's. And Leslie Ilston and someone else are here. Hi.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. I'm Leslie Ilston with the Alzheimer's Association, and this is Brett Logan. He's our logistics chair and also one of your attorneys. So I brought him along for moral support. The Walk to End Alzheimer's is September 12th at the Bricktown Ballpark. We'll be taking up the Mickey Mantle Space area, and our walk route will be slightly less than 2 miles, extending over as far west as E.K. Gaylord, as far north as 4th Street, and then back down into the Bricktown area. We expect 5,000 people in attendance, and last year the walk was the number 24th walk in the nation out of 600 walks. So that's something that Oklahoma City should be really proud of. You're really great supporters of Alzheimer's and the research and programs and services we provide.
And how can people sign up?
People can sign up at okcwalk.com, and I encourage each and every one of you to attend the morning of the walk. It's a great ceremony and a great event.
All right. Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you.
It's in Ward 6 and 7. John, you want to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Tim. All right, item 6B2 is the Antique Automobile Club of America's Okie region to host the Glidden Tour car display. This event would be on September 2nd, and Jeff Lytle is here, handing out materials. Good morning, Jeff. We'll need your name and address for the record.
My name's Jeff Lytle. I live at 10516 Dorothy Drive, Oklahoma City. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I wanted to extend a special thank you to David Greenwell for getting us the parking facilities for our trailers. We have, the Glidden Tour is back in town. It hasn't been in town since 1910. There are 130 pre-1942 automobiles in Oklahoma City from 32 states, Canada, and Germany. They are here to participate in the 70th revival of the AAA Glidden Tour. We would like to close Broadway between 6th and 9th Street on September 2nd in order to allow the public to come out and see these fantastic automobiles. As part of that program, we are raising money for the Oklahoma Literacy Coalition. You can come out and view the cars for free, and for a $2 donation to Oklahoma Literacy, you can buy a ballot to vote on 5 different awards we'll be presenting. I've lost my voice this week.
Jeff, are all the cars that you're illustrating here in your program, are all of them going to be here at the?
Yes, sir.
Well, this is an amazing collection.
Yes, sir.
Goodness.
It's quite something. We're bringing them back to Automobile Alley. As I said, these folks came in from 37 states, Canada, and as far away as Germany. There are people that ship their cars here in order to be part of this tour.
Well, these are some of the finest automobiles
in the world.
Any collector's owns.
Yep,
And they'll
but
all
these
be
are
on
drivers.
display.
These are cars that people will drive on the roads. Therefore, they're not so worried about the public seeing them. So we're really inviting the public out. When the people stop to eat lunch, we want the public to come out and see the cars. We'd like them to vote and raise money for literacy.
All right, tell them when and where, and we'll move on.
We're at Automobile Alley on Wednesday, September 2nd. We'll be at the Masonic Temple in Guthrie today. We'll be in Chickasha at the Grady County Fairgrounds on Thursday, and we'll be at the Lloyd Noble Center on Friday.
All right,
Come
Jeff,
join us.
thanks.
Thank you.
How about a motion on this item? Second? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Jeff, good luck. All right, item 6B3 is from the Down Syndrome Association of Central Oklahoma. They're going to be holding a 5K on September 26th. And Jill Harrison is here. Hi, Jill.
Hi. My name is Jill Harrison. I'm the Executive Director of the Down Syndrome Association, address of 600 Northwest 23rd Street in Oklahoma City. We are hosting our Down Syndrome Festival and 5K on September 26th. And we are expecting about 6,000 people for the festival and about 350 runners. It is our largest fundraiser of the year, and all of the money raised will stay in Oklahoma to support acceptance and inclusion for people of all ages with Down syndrome. And we are requesting to close in front of the ballpark from 7 to 10:30 a.m. for our 5K.
All right, and the ballpark's in Ward 7. John, do you want to make a motion? All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Jill, thanks. Good luck. Item 6B4 is from the Farmers Help Point to host the Robert Brady Memorial 5K. And Erin Campbell is here. Good morning, Erin.
Good morning. Erin Campbell with Farmers Insurance, 7340 West Memorial in Oklahoma City. This is the 5th annual Robert Brady 5K, previously known as Blaze the Night. We're an evening 5K. The race starts at 7 p.m., and all of the funds support the United Way of Central Oklahoma here in Oklahoma City. We're requesting to close the southbound curbside lane of Rockwell from 133rd to Francis Tuttle's campus. Our course starts and ends in the farmer's parking lot, runs down Rockwell to Francis Tuttle, and comes back.
How long do you think the street will be closed?
We typically put out the barricades around 6:30, and our last runner comes in about 8 o'clock, and then we go and pick up the barricades, so about 3 hours.
Okay. It's in Ward 8. Mark?
Move for approval. Second.
All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks. You bet. Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 6B5 is a request from the Kent Events Incorporated to host the Wiggle Out Loud, and that's going to be on September 6th, and someone is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Thank you, Council. Kent Stephen Meyer, 708 West Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City. Wiggle Out Loud is in its 3rd year. It's a family-friendly children's music festival held here at Bicentennial Park, just in front of the Civic Center. So our request is to follow procedures from last year for road closures on North Walker Avenue from Couch to Colcord. And our event is held from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Road closures will be from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., working with OKCPD.
All right. It's in Ward 6. Somebody want to make a motion?
Second.
All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Good luck. Thank you. And item 6B, let's see, 6 is the Mesta Park Neighborhood Association's request to hold the Mesta Festa, and that'll be on Northwest 18th Street on September 12th. Is there anyone here representing this event? All right, how about a motion?
Second.
Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And item 6B7 is a request from the Plaza District Association to host the Plaza District Festival. And Carla Lewis is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Kayla Lewis.
Kayla, I'm sorry.
It's okay. 1312 North Blackwelder. The 17th Annual Plaza Festival will happen September 26th from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. and we'll close the streets from Indiana to Blackwelder on 16th Street. We'll have artist booths, food trucks, live music, all sorts of things, kids' activities.
Sounds great. And there's information on your website, I'm sure.
Yes.
All right, how about a motion here?
Move the item. Second.
Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thanks, Kayla. Item 6B8 is the Western Avenue Association's attempt to hold the West Fest on September 19th, and Rachel Taylor is here. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning.
Tell us about the West Fest Festival.
It's Rachel Taylor. It's 1005 Northwest 47th Street, Oklahoma City. This is our inaugural event. It is our first street festival event for the Western Avenue Association. It'll be held on Western Avenue physically between 41st and 43rd Street. We actually just went through a new streetscape project in that area. It's halfway through completion. The construction will be out of way of the festival during the time when it occurs on the 19th. We'll be closing the street at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we will reopen it probably about 2 o'clock the next morning. So it is a full 10-hour event. So.
All right. It's in Ward 2. Ed?
For approval.
Second.
All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Rachel. All right. We'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 7 items on the MFA.
Bob Tiener's here to give us just a little bit of an update on Lantina, item A.
Okay. Morning, Bob.
Morning. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background and some of the enforcement activity that we've been doing. This first picture, was taken in August, just kind of gives you an idea what it looks like. I'll show you a picture later in the presentation of the interior that gives you a little better look. This aerial view, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Lantana was built in 1970. It's about a quarter-mile west of Rockwell on the south side of 10th Street. On the east there's a row of single-family houses. There's a convenience store right there on the corner. Apartment complex to the north and to the west. That project directly south is a condominium project, and then to the west and south is a elementary school and then a city park south of that. That kind of gives you an idea of the surrounding properties. We've had since 2008, we picked 2008 because that's when we feel like it was completely vacant. Since then, we've had about 100 complaints filed on the property. A lot of times when you have complaints, you get multiple complaints for the same thing. The addresses are different. But we've actually given notice for 45 violations on the property and issued 29 abatement actions. And there's several, I listed them there, but high grass and debris, unsecured and dilapidated. We've had multiple different types of violations there. So since 2008, we've had over $72,000 expended on abatement on the property. Basically what happens during an abatement process, we'll receive a complaint, our inspector will go out, check, and confirm the violation. We'll give the property owner an opportunity to abate, but if they don't abate, then it goes through the contracting process. Well, if it's a dilapidated or unsecured, it comes to council. You declare it, and then it goes through the contractor's process. Once they abate it, our inspector confirms. We pay the contractor, and we bill the property owner and then any mortgage holders. We send them a bill, so they're all aware that we've done the action on the property. And if the bill's not paid within 6 months, then we can certify the lien at the county. And our lien is co-equal with the ad valorem taxes. And then at the county, after 3 years, if you haven't paid your lien or your taxes, the county treasurer can put it on a tax sale. And that's important. This next slide shows you that in the last 3 years, what the property owner has been doing is he's paid that third year of taxes and liens, so it doesn't get set for a tax sale. In 2013, we received $12,351 from that. Something I want to add is we not only charge for the abatement costs, but we also have an administrative fee that goes on that lien. And the administrative fees vary from $250, $300, $500, depending on the type of abatement we do. But so he's done it in 2014. He paid his taxes plus $28,000, and we get that money back. It goes back into our fund. I'd note there, for whatever reason, in 2011, we only received 3 complaints, and the property owner abated 2 of those. So for that year, we only had 1 high grass and weed complaint. So currently, the outstanding liens on the property is just over $31,000. Now we'll talk about the dilapidated buildings inside. This is a picture of probably the worst piece, but there's a lot of issues inside the complex. This aerial, the red X's show the 7 buildings that have fire damage. This is about 70,000 square feet. I'd note that the building, the X directly right of the swimming pool, that south portion of that building is where the fires were this summer. That there were a couple of fires out there, and so this aerial doesn't show that damage. But so we have 7 properties, approximately 70,000 square feet of a 162,000 square foot project. And this is related to the item today. We're asking you to allow us to send out bids so we can try to demolish these 7, see what the bids come back and start demolishing these properties. We estimate it will be somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000. One thing about these properties I need to point out is that since they're fire damaged, the abatement of the asbestos is different. We expect the bids on these to come back somewhere from $4 to $7 because since the buildings aren't safe for an abatement team to go in there, we're allowed to demolish it and abate at the same time. And basically, I think they call it a wet demo, where they put water on the building as they're demolishing it to keep the dust down, but then they're allowed to take that debris directly to the landfill. That last bullet there shows that on the buildings that have asbestos that are safe, we have to abate first, and the abatement costs, it's $15 a square foot. That's the minimum. So this next slide kind of shows you, we have 92,000 square feet of building remaining on the property that they're deteriorating, but they're not fire damaged. So based on our asbestos abatement study that was done, we anticipate to demolish the remaining 92,000 square foot would cost about $1.3 million. And then after you abate, then you have to demolish, so that would cost an additional $230,000 to demolish them after they're abated. So that puts our estimated cost somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million to clean the entire project. And before I go on and talk about some options, I want to show you this next slide. This is our abandoned building ordinance. This project's been declared abandoned, and so we're able to try to recover our costs. So that just over $14,000 is the cost from the 2 fires that they worked this summer. State law allows us to send the bill quarterly, so at the end of September, we'll send them this bill. And we have this really, the last quarter, we actually had 109 different hits on abandoned buildings that we've already had on the list. So that thing's starting to kick in. We haven't had anybody pay yet, but we're starting to send the billing out. So hopefully that will happen. Okay, and the last slide, just kind of want to talk about options. The best option is the owner figures out a way to abate it, pay us our costs, and either sell it for redevelopment or do the redevelopment himself. I know he's had contact with my staff and the councilman, but really nothing's come of that, and it's all a financial deal, I'm sure, but he has been talking to us. Another option would be to condemn the property. A property with these buildings on there, I've been told, probably has very little value in a condemnation case because of the buildings being a liability to clean off. But we'd still be in for the cost of the abatement of the structures. So, I mean, and then we have to create a plan, develop a redevelopment plan. Another option, and this is kind of tied to what we're doing today, is to start a demolition of the individual fire-damaged buildings and certify those liens for the cost. And theoretically, that will make it cost the property owner more money each year when he pays those back taxes and liens to keep it off the sheriff's sale or the tax sale. You know, one advantage here is we do get our money back eventually if he continues to pay like he's been paying. And it does get rid of some of those really damaged buildings. And then the last option is, you know, if we got with the county treasurer and decided that he's not going to pay that assessment, then we could try to foreclose on the liens. And, you know, I don't know what that will accomplish really. It would get us there quicker. We wouldn't have to wait for a tax sale, but we still have the issues I've already talked about. And that's it in a nutshell. I'll take any questions. I've got staff here that can answer questions if you have.
James, you want to comment on what a nuisance this is in this part of the city?
Yeah, I mean, for all the neighborhoods in that area, this is the eyesore. This is the point of just the thing that everybody talks about, things that everybody wants fixed. And I think Bob's right that the first option is certainly the best option. I think the best option as far as the city goes is probably that third one, of demoing it.
I mean, this is the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and
this is a broad step for us to take, but this is an extraordinary circumstance that negatively impacts a lot of people in far west Oklahoma City, and it seems like a necessary step. Pete, you wanted to say something?
Just a practical question about the value of the land. Do we have an idea if we took the entire project down, what the land value is?
The county assesses it for $460,000 right now, but really without some...
That's probably been a diminishing value if it's been...
So, no, we don't really know what the value of with all the buildings gone, what it would be.
It would just seem to me it would be well for us to have some idea. I think we ought to go ahead. I'm not arguing we shouldn't go ahead, but we ought to have some idea of what the raw land value would be worth if we did it, because we might take a hit on it, but it's one of those hits we probably have to take.
I guess the thing that boggles my mind is the time it takes to do something, and what I'm unclear on, the 3 years we wait for the failure to pay taxes and the lien, is that by state statute? Is that ordinance? Is there a way we can speed that up and amend something?
I'm not aware of a way to change that time frame because it's really up to the county treasurer. I mean, that's the law he's working under now, so.
Sure seems like a long time.
I think on the abandoned buildings, and Laura can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe on abandoned buildings, we just certify the lien over to the county clerk's office, the registrar of deeds office. So on those, we actually could go into district court and not wait for a sale. We could go into district court and try to foreclose the lien.
But it seems to me the landowner, he waits the first year, he waits the second year, he waits the third year, and then he pays. Is there a way, what I'm unclear on, is that an ordinance or is that a statute?
That's a statute.
By state law?
Yes, that's a statute.
Okay.
All right. Well, it sounds like the council wants to leave this on for the MFA.
Yeah, it looks to me like the answer is that if we file the lien to get the county to certify that an agreement that we could begin the foreclosure and start the foreclosure pretty quickly after we get the lien.
I haven't looked at the statute recently on dilapidated and weeds, but I think there's an option for them to allow us to collect it.
Yeah. I think.
Yes, and that's the fourth bullet point, that if the county and the city agree that they are unable to collect, then we can go ahead and file a foreclosure action in district court.
So in that instance, we would wait 6 months maybe as opposed to 3 years and just foreclose on the lien. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, what happens then after we foreclose?
Well, I think the council's sentiment is we'd like to work a little bit faster and a little more aggressive. Do we have the staff, to handle all these cases? I mean, it's not like this is the only one.
The staff's an issue. The bigger issue is the money. I mean, the upfront money. I mean, whether the contractor's not going to wait for a lien to be closed, we're going to have money to tear these items down, and then hopefully we'll be able to recover part of it sometime in the future.
Well, can we see about putting some money in next year's budget?
And we do have,
Put more.
we do this process every week. We have a dilapidated docket every week.
I think
but they're not to this magnitude.
I mean, I think you're looking long-term. If you look at this property now, it's not generating anything positive. And so if you look long-term, if we put up the $1.5–2 million to tear it down, I mean, we want it to produce something. And so I think that if there is a plan of somebody that's wanting to produce something positive from it, of people living there, I mean, nobody's lived there since 2008, so it's just sitting there depressing all of the other surrounding properties. And so I think that's the way that you can justify spending the money now. So.
Yeah.
But it sure seems like to me that if you foreclose on the lien within 6 months, the landlord's probably going to pay instead of waiting 3 years to get paid. And if he doesn't, he'll probably default, he or she. And so I think we should take a much more aggressive approach instead of waiting 3 years.
If he is going to pay it, that's going to make him pay faster than sitting around for 3. What happens, Councilman Greiner was asking, what happens when we foreclose it in district court is it ends up going to a sheriff's sale unless they come in and pay the lien during the pendency, and then at the sheriff's sale.
So we don't own it.
No, or potentially we could.
I mean, we could, but
sheriff's sale and acquire the property.
Okay, well, that would be ideal.
But you may not get the full value of what you put into it.
Right.
At the sheriff's sale.
Right.
Larry?
Jim, a question. Several weeks ago, one of the councilmen asked about a workshop to discuss this whole general area. Did we not?
I don't remember the workshop. I remember asking about a report on the task force that's going on, and that's being.
Well, I thought we also were going to schedule a workshop to address this, to be brought up to date on this particular situation, not the lantana, but the overall of abandoned and vacant buildings, because there are a lot of nuances. There is a coalition, a volunteer coalition that meets once a month under the auspices of the planning department that's looking at where we are with results after what we've done a couple of years ago with our efforts that also involve the state. And this is a very complex issue that I think getting all the council together and see what's involved would be advantageous.
All right.
All right, ready to move forward on the MFA? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I have a question on D.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
The question is that it says that this art was missing from a storage yard.
The art was created, it was stolen, the insurance has made us whole, and so now we're having the art replaced.
But it was stolen from a storage yard, is that right? Is that the same place you have all the stuff from the Civic Center Park stored, or is it more secure than that?
Doug, where was the art stored?
The art was stored at one of our maintenance facilities. They breached the fence at the complex and walked off with the art piece.
That's all I...
All right, is there a motion on MFA?
Move the item.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convenes the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. There are 4 items. Second. All right, comments or questions on the PPA? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convenes the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. 2 items. Move the item. All right. Cast your votes on the EAT. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket.
Move the item subject to individual consideration.
All right. Are there any individual considerations from the council?
Mr. Mayor, 7AE.
AE, all right.
Your Honor, item AS, as in Sam.
And then Mary Margaret Jones from Hargraves is here this morning to do a presentation on the MAPS 3 park.
Okay, which item is that?
That would be item BN.
BN, okay. Any other comments from council? John, you want to go ahead and comment on item AE?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out that we do have representation from the Adventure District here. I see the Softball Hall of Fame, the Zoo, Remington, the Chickasaw Nation. Am I missing anyone? Devery, I think I covered it all. But this relates to the Business Improvement District, and it says something when you are able to bring all those different entities together for a common good. So I just wanted to again point out that we do have individuals that represents the Adventure District here.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Uh-huh. David, you want to talk about AS?
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to thank Doug Cupper, the Director of our Public Parks, Eric Winger, Director of Public Works, County Commissioner Rod Cleveland for his assistance with the project at the Merrill Medley Park. We're going to pave the walking track. I was at the Village on the Park Retirement Center last week. Many individuals would like to use this track, but unfortunately, due to their age and health situations, they're unable to. Many of them require to use a cane to walk, or a walker, or in some instances, a wheelchair. Currently, the track is maintained with gravel. By paving this, this will allow a large number of senior citizens to begin utilizing the park. And we've just added new facilities for the children, swings, slides. The Women of the South have identified this as a sculpture park with the intent to continue to add sculptures out there. So a great combined effort by a lot of people, and I just wanted to thank everybody involved with this. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I forgot to give special thanks to Kim, who's a staff member in the planning department who has worked hard on the Adventure District Improvement District. So thank you, Kim.
All right, and Russell Pace, Russell? Yeah, come on forward. Russell is asked to speak on item BG, BH, and BI. It's the MAPS 3 trail system. Russell, thanks for coming down.
Good morning.
We'll need your name and address for the record.
Very good. Russell Edward Pace, Jr. I live at 3101 Eaton Avenue here in Oklahoma City. I appreciate the opportunity to address the council, the city manager, and the mayor this morning. We're about to build a trail at Lake Draper. These items are specifically for that. In my opinion, there are other needs, significant needs, throughout the city for trails. I love Draper. I've been out there for the last 40 years as a dirt biker. I've seen the level of use of the lake. It's somewhat low. It's very low, actually. My suggestion today to the council is to take these three items, BG, BI, and BJ, and return them to the subcommittees so that we can weigh and measure this trail against other needs within Oklahoma City. That's really all I have to say today.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Russell, thank you.
Your Honor, may I speak on this item as well? I serve on the MAPS committee, and Russell made a presentation. There is only one no vote to go forward with the proposal. That was my no vote. I'm going to vote to allow this to go through, but Russell makes a great point that I think needs to be aired out at this level. And didn't go into as much detail today as what he did last week, but really there are opportunities to utilize some of the funds in the maps for streets and trails that would improve connectivity as opposed to solely recreational. The Draper Trail is considered more of a recreational use, and for those of us who don't get days off, you know, connectivity to be able to ride your bike, say downtown, has a level of importance that I don't think we looked at when these projects were first developed many years ago, when MAPS 3 was first started. I'm going to vote to allow this to go forward and not send it back to the committee, but I think the issue of connectivity with respect to our trails is an issue that needs greater attention.
Yeah.
And the trails do both. The Draper is more of a recreation destination trail, but it is connected to other trails that bring it into the downtown area. The River Trail, which is heavily utilized, the new one, is both recreation and connectivity because it does bring it through. I would argue that the trail that goes along I-44 from the river to Lake Hefner is recreation, but really it's going to be an added connectivity link. One of the projects that's in the 07 Geo Bond projects is a Deep Fork Trail, which will tie the end of the Katy Trail up north, just off of Eastern, north of 50th, or of Remington Park Way, over to the trails at Grand, and those trails at Grand and Western, those are already tied into Lake Hefner. So the answer is we're doing both. And some of them are more focused on recreation, some of them are more focused on connectivity. But as we go forward, we are building trails that address, I think, multiple needs.
Yeah, that trail that's in the bond issue, when are we going to sell those bonds?
I think next year, Eric, is that right?
Okay.
Of course, we haven't put together next year's list yet, have we? It could be next year.
Okay. I think that's going to be significantly helpful in trying to connect to, we have this broad network of over 100 miles of trail systems in the metro, but there are still a handful of connectivity issues out there. But I think they're either on the drawing board or they're currently funded. Yeah, Larry?
Speaking about that, when the trails was incorporated into the MAPS 3 process, did we not commit that we would use the monies, should the MAPS 3 pass, to build out the rest of the Trails Master Plan, which goes back a number of years ago? And so we are limited, are we not, possibly, in what we can do with that money? It would have to go to another connectivity or another part of the trails that is part of the Trails Master Plan.
Mm-hmm. What happened was the Trail Committee then went back and re-looked at the plan and made some alterations. And I don't remember how significant they were, but the master plan changed in the same time frame as the vote was taking place. And then I think the MAPS 3 subcommittee has been looking at that plan and trying to figure out how to fund it with the MAPS 3 dollars. So it's been a coordinated effort, but it hadn't been as clean, as streamlined over the last 20 years. It's been streamlined over the last 5, but not as streamlined over the last 20 as we had hoped.
But the Lake Draper that we're talking about here is a part of the Trails Master Plan as we sit here, is it not?
Yes.
That's Mike.
Okay. Yeah, Russell?
Absolutely. The only other question I had for the council this morning is, how many miles of trails was projected to be built or promised to be built by MAPS 3?
Well, that's what Larry and I were just discussing. The original was to fund the MAPS Trail, the Trail Master Plan as it existed when we were calling for the vote. Subsequent to that discussion, the Trail Committee went back and re-looked at it, re-examined it, and expanded the trail system. And so the funding that was there for the original trail system was adequate, I understand. But after this review of the trail system, they expanded the plan, and so the funding does not meet that expectation.
Right.
Yeah, so it's it's a complicated answer.
Absolutely.
My recollection, the best I can give you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. My recollection from what I reviewed this morning was 57 miles of trail was promised. We're going to end up about 50. Let's see, if we do 10 there, we're going to end up about 25. So we've fallen short by about 22 miles so far. But
And Russell, my point is, and it may or may not be similar to yours, but the master plan is more of a circular trail around the city of Oklahoma City, almost like the old Grand Boulevard, but it's much wider in its coverage. When I hear of connectivity, I'm thinking in terms of a direct line, somewhat direct, from each coordinate of the city to the core, to downtown. That's what we're lacking. You know, there's a group that would like to see Classen Boulevard connect northwest Oklahoma City to downtown. I'd like to see a trail that would connect, say, Early Wine Park to downtown, and I'm sure there's a group that would like to see southeast Oklahoma City connected to downtown, and then John, somewhere in northeast Oklahoma City to connect a direct trail that would take you to downtown if you so choose to ride your bicycle to work, or you wanted to come down and utilize the river and all the facilities we're developing downtown. That's, when I say connectivity, that's what I'm talking about. So there's different interpretations that I'm sure, but that's my point.
Right.
David or Russell, did you have a specific project that you would like to see elevated above this one, or just in general?
No, Ed, and see, so that's why I'm not going to vote against this, because I don't understand the detail. Russell and the members of the committee, the Trails Committee, could look at it and devise a more specific plan. So I don't, other than I would like to see the city address the issue of connectivity as it relates, when I use the term, 4 trails that would take us from the 4 coordinates of the city to downtown.
All right, Russell, thanks for coming down. All right, and now let's have the presentation from Mary Margaret Jones on the MAPS 3 Park.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to be here on this day that's really a milestone day for the downtown park. That's for me. This is a presentation of the preliminary draft report for the upper park, which Brent's going to open for me. And we're looking for your approval today, which will allow us to move forward with plans and specs. This is the agenda. I'll give you an overview. This is sort of a summary of where we've been in terms of the park, its features, its budget and its cost, and next steps, phasing schedule and next steps. This is sort of a nice graphic, I think, that summarizes 3 important facts or aspects of the park. The kinds of visitation we're expecting, the kinds of destinations the park will provide in terms of how many, their uniqueness, and their variance between hardscapes and softscapes, nature and urban park features. And then the bar chart across the lower left-hand side you've seen before, but that's really the tally of the 2,000 or so public comments we received, and within categories, the preferences from the public of what they would like to see in the park. We constantly refer to that as sort of benchmarking as we make our way through the design process. This is the design of the upper park, and you can see immediately some of the major features of the upper park. The oval, the great lawn, which can host from hundreds to tens of thousands of people for major events for the city, outdoor events for the city. The lake, which is another kind of recreation in the park and another sort of feature that really speaks to the history of parks in Oklahoma City, and water as a recreational draw in parks. The promenade, which will take you from downtown to the Skydance Bridge, finally linking Skydance Bridge, and eventually will take you to Lower Park, which we'll be back to show you in coming months. The large civic fountain on Robinson for play, people of all ages, cafe on the boulevard, and woodlands throughout. So shade, respite, gardens, specific Oklahoma City landscapes, and of course Union Station as the real jewel in the park and a beacon within the park's southern portion. So this is a view along the boulevard. So imagine a cafe, imagine urban gardens, imagine outdoor play like bocce, like shuffleboard, things to do, a bite to eat, and the urban great lawn to your left in that view. Now you're under the shade. The cafe is as much about outdoor space as it is about indoor space, and imagine in the wintertime an outdoor fireplace behind you in this view, and you're looking out over the urban gardens and toward the great lawn. At nighttime, this should be a real beacon and a place. This is as if you were walking along Harvey's Spine, if you will, Harvey Street, and you're crossing, and the cafe is lit and drawing you into the park in the evenings. Now you're up on the hill that frames the back edge of the Great Lawn, providing views of downtown that are quite spectacular, places in the sun, places in the shade. You see the stage structure in the background, and then to your left you see the cafe. The Civic Fountain is a place for children of all ages and is scaled appropriately with small jets and large jets in a field of paving so that when they're turned off, it's a plaza for multiple uses. And you see Skydance Bridge in the background and Union Station on your right in the background. This is as if you're walking down the promenade. These light fixtures are designed by the artist Jamie Carpenter. They refract light in the daytime and cast light in the nighttime, so they'll be a beautiful marker all the way to the river eventually. And you see the Civic Fountain to your left, the lake and Union Station to your right. This is as if you're up in the air, hovering above I-40, looking across the park, and you see this amazing vista of things to do. In the foreground is the Robinson Street Gardens, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But you're looking across the fountain, the lake, the bridge over the lake house, the children's play area, the Great Lawn, and in the background, the cafe with its sort of chimney beacon. Now you're down at eye level in almost that same place. So you're in the Robinson Street Gardens, seeing all of that vista across the park. And this is a very different kind of environment within the park. This is a real Oklahoma woodland experience where you meander along this pathway where there will be interpretive features, educational features, and a series of woodland gardens, each different, one from the next. Some about water, some about grass, some about sunlight, some about shade, some about butterflies, but each one about a collection of plants to be interpreted and learned from and enjoyed and played in. And then from that hill at the back of the oval, looking across those woodland gardens, across the lake, the bridge, and Union Station in the background, and Skydance Bridge as well. The lake house was the boathouse was a feature we added in this phase of work as a different kind of destination, a place to enjoy the lake, boating on the lake, a beer and a burger, if you will, on Friday nights, and a place to rent bicycles, not just bokies, but bicycles that are specific to the park. So sitting on that deck, you're looking down the length of the lake, making it appear even larger than it is, to Skydance Bridge. You see the landform that takes you up to Skydance Bridge in the background, and again, Union Station on your right. So a very different vista, not a downtown vista, but a vista toward the southeast. And then Union Station, taking the vehicular space that's in front of Union Station, making it a pedestrian space instead, making it a big sort of patio, if you will. Sunday in the park, you can imagine lunch in the park, overlooking this very pastoral setting in this southwest corner of the upper park. So a few details. We're looking to plant over 800 trees, and part of the beauty of proceeding with final plans and specs, if you so approve this preliminary draft report today, we can move forward with a tree pre-purchase package. And it's important to be able to buy these trees ahead of time to go into contract growing so that we compete with your neighbors in Tulsa, who are also buying lots of trees right now, and so that we can have the right species trees, start growing them now, and plant them even larger than we could if we waited until the last minute to buy them. You can see the majority of the trees are forming the shade of the woodlands, but quite a few of them are along the promenade and in some of the more formal parts of the park as well. The understory beneath the trees is also rich and varied and lush in some places and made for play in other places and visual interest of the gardens as well, but all speaking to Oklahoma. And then the hierarchy of paving, so that you move through the park with clarity, you find places to get lost, so to speak. You find places to move through. As a bicyclist, you move through fast on Robinson. As a pedestrian, you move slowly on the Woodland Trail. Many different experiences. Now, we worked with many event organizers in the city to make sure we were designing a park that would work all days. This is a daily kind of dispersion of support facilities. Bathrooms are very important. Places to get something to eat are very important. And you can see between the cafe, the boathouse, and Union Station, and the children's play area, bathrooms and offices and various support facilities, and places for food trucks and food carts. On market days all along Robinson is a shady promenade with shade structures and hookups for food trucks, places for food trucks to park, places for buses to park, and then the boathouse, Union Station, cafe, and stage structure as well. Visitor services for weddings, for large weddings, small weddings. Myriad Gardens has been working with us, as you know, as the potential operator for the park. We've learned a lot from what's been working in Myriad Gardens and what we need more of in this downtown park, and weddings is one of those. Then we looked at events that are one day, 1,500 people to 250,000 people over multiple days. That diagram happens to outline how the Arts Festival would use this park. So in a one day, 1,500 person, we don't impact streets, but in a 250,000 person multi-day event, we do close the boulevard in this case, in this example, and half of Robinson in this example. The architecture, the buildings, Hans Butzer, of course, Butzer Architecture working with us on this. The buildings are dispersed throughout the park. They're modest in scale. They speak to vernacular architecture and the history of this place. So they really are about these kinds of buildings that were built across the prairie when Oklahoma was a new place of discovery in North America. And they are very specific to the kinds of parks, facilities that these kinds of urban parks need. And they're not very big, but they do a big job in the park. In addition, Union Station is seen as the place to put our resources in terms of historic restoration, and all the cultural organizations and parks offices that would like to be on site. These are ideas that came to us from the potential operator, Myriad Gardens, as additional items to be added to the park design, which we have been working with them on over the past months. Again, you see this as ways of raising revenue, and these are ways of creating activity, increased activity in the park, from weddings to birthday parties to bike rental, et cetera, to roller rinks in the summer. So these are all ideas that make this a more active place and a place that will raise more revenue. And we have begun working on those, working closely with them. These are the idea, this shows you the idea of trellises for weddings. This shows you the idea of shade structures along Robinson next to where food trucks would park. So there are places to sit in the shade after you buy food at the food trucks. This is the idea of a pavilion at Robinson Gardens, a shade pavilion, under which you could have either a very large wedding or a farmer's market or a summer roller rink. And these shade devices will both create shade and dappled light, so they won't appear dark, but will be very inviting day and night. The lake is doing a job. It's taking all the stormwater from the site, which we are reusing for irrigation. Under the Great Lawn, we are storing water in a gravel layer beneath the grass and then feeding that to the lake gradually. The bridge over the lake will also speak to the kind of vernacular architecture of the industry of this part of the city, but be lined with the warmth of wood and will be lit so that it casts beautiful light and shadows on the lake in the evening. The fountain takes its design cue from the prairies of Oklahoma and the blowing grasses, so that the jets of water come out of these stainless steel structures that appear like they're blowing in the wind. And there's a small area for small jets and a large area for large jets. When the jets are turned off, the stainless steel structures are still beautiful. When the wind picks up, there is still at least a scrim of water for padding about. And then you can turn it off entirely and put up a tent for the Arts Festival, for example. The playground is designed for all ages and designed as a circuit. So there are many things to do and a circuit for moving through it, with the smallest children closest to the structure where there are bathrooms and offices. And we built a large model in our office and have been working through the details of that play area to make it as much a children's garden as it is a children's play area. Then looking at the street, the boulevard is a very important street, and there's a lot to understand in terms of the utilities along the boulevard and where we can put the cafe. And then at Robinson and Boulevard, a location for a major piece of sculpture, and along Robinson, a spot for the food trucks. And then as you move further south on Robinson, the connection to the pedestrian underpass that connects to the development block to the east. Our budget, as you see on the left, and our cost, as you see on the right, so we're just under budget, and that looks very promising. And then in terms of phasing and sequencing, as I mentioned, really the first contract would be this fall to order trees. And then the next 2 and 3 are really rolling packages. There is no pause between them, but this is the way we are proposing construction that makes most sense. You start underneath, you build up. So we start with earthwork, utilities, the lake and the bridge, and then we move right into the buildings, the hardscape, fountain, softscape, et cetera. And this is the time frame we see for that. You see where we are here today. You see construction completing the end of 2018 so that the park could open in the spring of 2019. This is where we are on each of the components of the process of working on this project. The top booklet you've already approved, that was the master plan. The middle one, which is color-coded differently, is the one we're seeking approval on today, which is the preliminary report for the upper park. Then the bottom one, which is color-coded differently, we will come back to you. That's the preliminary design report for the lower park, which we are currently working on. The subcommittee thought it was really important that we think about the park as a whole in a cohesive way and the cost as a whole in a cohesive way, so we're continuing these efforts concurrently. So that's a summary. That was very brief, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Questions? Yeah, Ed?
Well, I want to ask about historic preservation, and I'm sure you're following the controversy on the Film Exchange building. If I have 2 concerns about the park, one is that it's bisected by a 10-lane superhighway, which can't do much about. Second is that it feels, obviously we're behind the 8 ball in terms of historic preservation. We got hit as hard as any city by urban renewal. We've made some more recent mistakes in addition to that, I feel. It feels urban renewal-esque in that we're demolishing all structures within an area without necessarily delineating which might have higher historic preservation other than the Union Station building. So can you explain to me the efforts or the thought process that went into specifically the Film Exchange building and how that may or may not be incorporated? And it's not like we're going to have buildings within the park. We're building new buildings, the boathouse, the cafe, the stage. So it makes it a little bit harder pill to swallow when we're tearing down a historic structure to build new buildings. How do we reconcile all that?
Well, I'd be happy to address that. That's a good question. Let me address your first topic first. I think that yes, I-40 exists, but I think with the Skydance Bridge and the major feature of the promenade and the art lighting along the promenade, we've turned the crossing of I-40 into an event. So I'd like to think that we have made the upper park and lower park one park with a kind of crescendo event that's kind of exciting and dramatic in the middle of it. To the question of the Film Exchange building in particular, as you know, we looked back, as we began this process, we looked back to the history of planning on this site for this park, and the I-40 mitigation study in 2001 looked at removing all the buildings on the upper park site to create this park, as did the Corridor Shore plan in 2007, as did the concept plan that was put forth for the MAPS vote in 2009, with the opportunity to create this great urban park seen as an opportunity not to be missed. As we began the preliminary design of this, we did start afresh. We did sort of step back and say, are we doing the right thing? We did structural analysis of all the buildings on the site, including Film Exchange. We had 27 people, more than a dozen organizations view the tour Film Exchange building to see if they might be interested in being there. They also toured Union Station, and there was unanimity that there was no interest or no one could see any way they could use the Film Exchange building. All of them wanted to be in the Union Station building. There are structural issues with Film Exchange, but not a great deal. The bigger issue with Film Exchange is parking, lack of, and how to use it, and how to use it in a way that would make sense in an urban park. We put forth a plea for developer proposals that ended up being open for over a year, and no financial plan, no development proposal came forward in that period of time of over a year. The worst thing that could happen would be for this building to be empty with boarded up windows in the middle of this great urban park. It would really be a detriment to the park. Our economic consultants, HR&A, looked at all the buildings on the site and said, you need a cafe on the boulevard for it to be market successful. You need to use Union Station. It has great market feasibility. Film Exchange really does not have good market feasibility. So it would really be something that might harm the success of the park rather than anything else. It's also, with the new alignment of new curb alignments for Robinson and bikeways on Robinson, the location of the Film Exchange would actually make a sidewalk on Robinson only be 3.5 feet wide. So it's in the middle of the promenade that leads you from Robinson Street to Skydance Bridge. So we feel like we did due diligence to a really huge degree. We believe in historic preservation. We believe that Union Station takes all the resources we could muster and will take on any organization that could use such a historic building very, very well. And we think that's the right move for this park and the opportunity we have before us to create a great civic space.
But did the plans that you cite, the Court Shore, I mean, did they envision taking down the Union Station or preserving that?
They kept Union Station.
So the idea that we would preserve historic structures in the park was, I mean, at least that idea was part of those plans.
Absolutely.
I'm just not sure that, I mean, in terms of interest, it does seem, just reading reports and hearing that there was private interest, that certainly there was private interest, and then with it now being owned by the city, I'm not sure exactly, but it just seems that because we're so far behind the eight ball, we've destroyed so many of our historic structures, and we have so few left, that we would go the extra mile to incorporate those that we have left. And it doesn't feel that that's been done, especially when we're building, how many new buildings in the park?
In the upper park, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 new buildings.
Which are as much about shade structure as they are about buildings. I really want to make that clear. They are very, very minor on the building part and very major on the shade structure part, because they're integral with the park and they have indoor-outdoor relationships that are very important to make a park successful. I really would have to say that the opportunity for feasible development proposals from the private sector to come forward was wide open for a long time, and there really was just no one who sees any way to use the building in a way that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mary Margaret? All right. Look forward to the completion of this park, Mary Margaret.
Thank you.
Tell them to get after it. All right. Is there a motion on the consent docket?
Can we vote on B, N as in Nancy separately?
Yeah, sure. I'll take the motion then for the rest of the docket, and B in, which is the park, would be voted on separately. We have a motion, so we're voting on the bulk of the docket at this time. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Now, is there a motion on item B in separately? Second. All right, cast your votes. And it passes 5-2. Puts us on to the concurrence docket. Any comments or questions from council? We have a motion. Is there a second on the concurrence? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the concurrence docket? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And that brings us to item 9, which begins a series of items that require a separate vote. We start with a series of zoning cases. The first is an ABC issue in Ward 2 at 459 Northwest 23rd Street. Ed?
This had no protest, passed unanimously. I move for approval.
All right, is there any comments or questions from the audience on 9A1? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A2 is an ABC issue in Ward 6 at 201 North Walker Avenue. Has anyone signed up to speak on item 9A2? All right, how about a motion then? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A3 is a ABC issue in Ward 1 on Northwest Expressway. James, it's at 7,000. It must be near Rockwell.
Yeah, this is a ABC for just a restaurant on the Expressway, unanimous Planning Commission approval, so I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? All right, anybody show up to speak on this item today? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A4 is a zoning case in Ward 5. The address is 9321 South Santa Fe.
It's been deferred for 2 weeks.
All right, that item was deferred at the beginning of the council meeting, item 9A4, and so the new date is September 15th. That item will reappear in our council agenda. Item 9A5 is a zoning case in Ward 3 at 4200 South Morgan Road. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would become an R1 single-family residential district. Larry?
Yes, thank you. Bob, do we have the easement on this? Okay. There were no objections at the Planning Commission. It was passed unanimously. Has anybody signed up? I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A5. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. 9A6 is a zoning case in Ward 2 at 308 Northwest 69th Street. It's currently R1 single-family residential, and it would become an I2 moderate industrial district if approved. Ed?
Did anybody sign up to speak? No protests, unanimous approval of the Planning Commission. I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 9A6. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A7 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 437 Northwest 106th Street. It's currently R1 single family and I1 light industrial, and it would become a new I2 moderate industrial district if approved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up? This passed the Planning Commission. I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 9A7. Cast your votes. And it passes unanimously. Item 9A8 is also in Ward 7. The address here is 9000 Broadway Extension. It's currently R1 single family residential, C4 general commercial, I1 light industrial, and an I2 moderate industrial, and it would be all put into a new planned unit development if approved. John?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has anyone signed up, Madam Clerk? I think this is going to be definitely a great development in Northeast Oklahoma City. If you look between, let's say, Northeast, Northwest 23rd Street, all the way to you basically get to Edmond for it as mixed-use development along the Broadway extension. You see that is lacking. This brings in true mixed-use development, and so with that said, I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 9A8. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A9 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 3800 East Hefner Road. It's currently AA agricultural, C3 community commercial, and CHC highway commercial, and it's all going to be put into a new PUD if approved. John?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has anyone signed up, Madam Clerk? This is another great opportunity along the I-35 highway. If you look for its mixed-use development along I-35, between once you pass the, let's say, southeast, the 29th corridor on I-35 and go all the way to Edmond, of course, we have a lot of things that are lacking. This brings in, I think, a much-needed service to the area, and so I move again for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. we're voting on item 9A9. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A10 is a zoning case in Ward 4 at 3925 Southeast 59th Street. It's currently R1 Single Family Residential, and it's in a PUD currently, or it will be going to a PUD if approved. This item has been deferred once. Pete?
Is there anyone signed up to speak?
No.
I move approval.
All right. Cast your votes on item 9A10. It passes unanimously. Item 9A11 has been deferred for 2 weeks. It'll rejoin the council docket on September 15th. Item 9A12 is a zoning case in Ward 5 at 8900 South Douglas Avenue. It's currently R1 single family, and it would be changing into a simplified plan unit development. David?
Thank you, Your Honor. This was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission. There are no protesters. Is the applicant here? Bob, I do have one question. It has the address of 8900 South Douglas, but it's in between the streets of 87th and 86th. Shouldn't that be like 8700 South Douglas?
We'll check that and confirm
Okay.
it. That was just an identifier, but
Sure, okay. And they've made all the technical evaluations?
yes.
That was brought, okay. I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 9A12. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A13 is another zoning case in Ward 5 at 515 Southwest 149th Street. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would become a new SPUD if approved. David?
Thank you, Your Honor. This, too, was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission. There are no protesters present at the Planning Commission, but there is a letter attached to the application from an individual who's concerned with the water runoff. And Bob, on the notes, it says easement requested but not submitted. Okay, and Planning Commission approval subject to the technical evaluation?
Yes.
Okay. Can I raise this point, because this is an issue that I often hear whenever we see any new development, usually commercial, but sometimes even residential, about water runoff affecting existing homes. To what extent do we look into that, you know, when the staff evaluates this and then it goes to the Planning Commission? I mean, don't we gain a certain level of assurance that that would not occur or would not create a problem for the existing homeowners?
Each application goes to the Public Works Drainage section, and they review it. We get a more thorough review on actual plats because of the design, but when this comes in for building permit, there'll also be an additional review. And if they're in a basin that requires drainage, then that will be caught at the building permit stage.
Okay.
So we've got a couple of different checks that should catch it. And
Okay. Now, I don't know about other members of the council. They may not hear that complaint, but I certainly do. And it can be from developments that have occurred 10, 20 years ago. They look to, you know what, I'll even say this, some of my partners contribute that to the flooding we sometimes experience at our office. They said, oh, it's all this development that took place 20 years ago. We're now just beginning to receive the results of all that. I'm not in agreement all the time when I hear that complaint, but I just want to make sure that we've addressed, and Eric, we have addressed the issue about potential water runoff to the surrounding areas on this particular. Okay, I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A13. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A14 is a zoning case in Ward 6 at 3033 Southwest 14th Street. It's currently R1 Single Family Residential, and it also has a Scenic River Overlay Design District application, and it would become a new SPUD if approved. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on item 9A14? All right, how about a motion then from council? Is there a second? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A15 is a zoning case in Ward 3 at 14308 South Meridian Avenue. It's currently I-2 moderate industrial, and it has an airport environment zone 2 overlay aspect to it, and it'd be all put into a new SPUD if approved. Larry?
Yes, Your Honor. Has anybody signed up on this? This was passed unanimously by the Planning Commission with no protesters. I move for approval.
Second.
All right, we're voting on item 9A15. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A16 is a zoning case in Ward 2 at 4514 Northwestern Avenue. It's currently C4 General Commercial, and it would be put into a new SPUD if approved. Ed?
David signed up to speak. So it passed the Planning Commission unanimously. I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes on 9A16. It passes unanimously. Item 9A17 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 214 East Main Street and also 26 East Main Street. It's in the Bricktown Core District, and it would be a new SPUD if approved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up? The Planning Commission did approve. I move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second on 9A17. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9B has been deferred until September 29th. Item 9B1, at least, has been deferred until September 29th at the beginning of the meeting. And then item 9B2 has been withdrawn from the council agenda. Item 9C is an ordinance up for final hearing today. It's been introduced, and we had a public hearing before council. It has to do with the state's change in state law about texting while driving. Is there a motion here from council to move this forward? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously, and this brings us in compliance with state law. Similar situation on 9D. This is up for final hearing today, and this has to do with an ordinance, or actually a legislation that the legislature passed on changing lanes, and this would bring our city codes into compliance with the state law. Is there a motion on 9D? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9E is up for final hearing today, and this has to do with the Western Avenue Business District. Ed, you want to move this one forward? All right. Anyone here hoping to speak on this item before we vote? All right, cast your votes on item 9E. It passes unanimously. Item 9F is also up for final hearing today. This would create a street improvement assessment district, and F and G and H are all, let's see, no, they're separate. G and H are similar or adjacent, but F is separate in Ward 4. Pete, you okay for moving this forward? Okay. All right, so we're voting on item 9F. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And then item 9G and H are in Northwest Oklahoma City, up in Ward 8, and this is also up for final hearing today. So we'll need a motion from council. We'll have to take them separately. I'll take the motion on 9G. Is there a second? Okay, cast your votes, and it passes unanimously. And then on 9H, I'll need a motion. All right, cast your votes, and 9H passes unanimously. Item 9I is a series of 3 issues that have come to us from the Traffic Commission. The first 2 are in Ward 8 and have to do with parking. Is there anyone here that hopes to speak on any of these traffic issues that have come before council? Yeah, David.
Good morning. David Vox, 522 Colcord Drive. I am here on behalf of items I1 and I2. This is to allow my client to establish 90-degree parking and handicap parking adjacent to their amenity area. Ideal Homes has had a lot of success with their amenities, and it's created a need for this type of parking adjacent to those to avoid blocking the street. So Traffic Commission did recommend approval unanimously, and we would ask for the same.
All right, we're voting on item 9I1 first. It passes unanimously. Is there a motion on 9I2? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9I3 is a parking issue in Ward 7. Has to do with metered parking on East Sheridan. John, you okay with this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, move the item.
All right, cast your votes on 9I3. It passes unanimously. Item 9J is an ordinance that's being introduced today. It has to do with our fishing regulations, and Doug Cupper is here to tell us exactly what this item is all about.
Good morning, Your Honor and City Council. Again, this is more or less housekeeping. We try to stay current with all of the state fishing rules and regulations, and this just brings our ordinances in compliance with the state regulations.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I'll let the public know if this ordinance is accepted by council. In just a few seconds, we'll be calling for a public hearing on September 15th if they'd like to come down. Doug, we probably ought to give a little explanation. If we're going to hold a public hearing, we ought to tell people what the hearings would be about.
This mostly has to do with numbers of fish, types of fish that they can have in their creel at any given time, specific numbers as it relates to the catfish or striped bass and things along those lines.
I see, but it's already into state law.
That is
This would
correct.
just bring our city regulations into what state law is.
They've made an adjustment on sizes and numbers of specific fish in our close-to-home fishing lakes, and we just want to make sure that we're in compliance with their state laws.
Good enough. And a public hearing on this issue, September 15th. It's scheduled for final adoption on September 29th. I heard a motion and a second, so we're accepting item 9J, and it passes unanimously. All right, item 9K is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any item listed under 9K? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9L is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any item listed under 9L? All right, cast your votes, and that passes unanimously. 9M is abandoned buildings. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any of those items? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9N is a public hearing regarding removal of property from the abandoned building list. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on that item? All right, how about a motion?
Let me ask a question about that. What did they do to get the remove? What process did they go through?
They basically come in and present to us either a plan that's rehabbing or they're selling the property, or they fix it.
Good, thanks.
All right, cast your votes on 9N. It passes unanimously. Item 9O affects the city's purchasing policies, and Amy Simpkins is going to tell us.
Amy Simpson's here this morning to update us on the changes.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm going to just kind of do a brief overview of our purchasing policy, which was established by the City Council in 1993. And at that time, the City Council directed the city manager to establish a purchasing policies and procedures manual, which we've updated administratively periodically over the years. And so today I'm going to just present some highlights of our policy and some recent changes that we've made. And so first I was going to start with discussing a few of our procurement goals, which are also in your resolution as being our council policy. And a few of those are to comply with all pertinent state and local laws governing purchasing, to provide a fair and equal opportunity to all suppliers, and the city must be open, impartial, and ethical in our purchasing practices. And it's very important to us to pay our vendors promptly. It's a very high priority for procurement because we want to ensure that vendors want to bid on our contracts and our pricing agreements. It's also our responsibility to make sure that we take advantage of our federal and state tax exemptions. And we also try to obtain the greatest possible revenue from the disposal of surplus or obsolete property. And we have accountability through a system of checks and balances through our financial system, which separates approving from receiving. It also allows procurement buyers to do approvals, and then there are separate approvals for accounts payable when we're actually paying the contractors and suppliers. And the policy was updated. I'm sure that you know we recently implemented electronic bidding through BidSync, and so we brought our general purchasing policies and procedures up to date just to be in line with our new electronic bidding procedures. And through our electronic bidding, we've been very successful in that our contractors and suppliers can register to receive notifications on any commodity that they wish to bid on. And it's also decreased the need for our bidders to drive downtown to attend bid opening. And for procurement, it's also decreased. Sometimes we would receive no bids or single bids, but the system allows us to monitor to make sure that vendors are aware that we have a bid out there and that they've downloaded our bid documents. And periodically, the city manager will issue a management bulletin regarding the state law requirement that departments have an encumbrance in place prior to placing an order or purchasing anything with city funds. And in this same management bulletin, we notify departments of our emergency purchasing procedures, which requires that they obtain approval prior to any purchase, even if it's after hours on the weekends or during an emergency. We have a process set up where we can issue a purchase order number, and then on the next business day, we follow our regular purchasing policy and get a purchase order entered in the financial system. The City Council approves contracts and pricing agreements that are over $25,000, and these agreements result from a formal bidding process, which is through our electronic bidding system. The council also authorizes state contract purchases that are in excess of $25,000. Buyers and the purchasing agent monitor the use of state contracts to ensure that we're receiving the best products at the best price for the city. And one advantage that we have by using state contracts is that we receive a volume discount based also on what the state and other municipalities are purchasing. And so it really allows us to receive additional discounts specifically on vehicles, heavy equipment, and on our Microsoft licensing for a lot of our IT equipment. And then council also approves sole source purchases over $25,000. And generally our sole source purchases are going to be replacement or repair parts which necessitate the same brand, or it could be so that our equipment can be compatible. Software maintenance is an area where you will frequently see sole source resolutions because we have to purchase the maintenance from the software vendor. Sometimes we have sole sources because there's only one product that can meet our needs, but we have a lot of requirements prior to bringing anything to council as a sole source. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about our open market purchasing procedures. Purchases not available on a contract or a pricing agreement, we refer to those as open market purchasing. And the city's open market limit for goods and services is $25,000. And our purchasing policies require 3 or more informal competitive price quotes if we're spending between $2,500 and $25,000 if it's something that's not covered on a contract. And then if a department is spending under $2,500, the department's going to follow their own department policy, and we also request that they use a purchasing card if they can. City contracts or pricing agreements receive first priority regardless of how much we're spending. And with the policy update, we've made it very clear that quotes are to be obtained from our contracted vendors for open market purchases prior to going to vendors that may not be on a city contract. And then buyers review open market purchases, including quotes, when they're approving purchase orders or purchasing card transactions in our financial system. So it's decentralized to the department, but then it's reviewed by procurement. Our purchasing card program continues to be successful. Last year, we spent approximately $13.5 million with an average purchase price of $600 per transaction. And we currently have approximately 180 purchasing cards throughout the city. And the city auditor's office has conducted a few audits over the past few years. And so we continually strive to improve our processes and our program to make sure that we have adequate controls in place. We do require the use of a purchasing card when a department is spending less than $2,500. And then buyers perform monthly cardholder audits. They actually go out to the cardholder and a supervisor and just verify that they have the receipts and that everyone's following our purchasing policies. The cards do have controls and limits, so we can limit the amount of money spent per transaction or per month by a cardholder. And we can also control if you need to buy office supplies or travel or automotive parts. So it's whatever the need of the cardholder, then we can set the security on the card for those needs. The city continues to have a 3-way match process in accounts payable, which includes the purchase order, invoice, and electronic receiver. Purchase orders are issued to the supplier, and then the supplier delivers goods and services to the department. The supplier invoices the city, And we have departments enter an electronic receiver in our financial system, which is our three-way match, and then that is accounts payable's approval to move forward with the payment to the vendor. And then recently, the city's guidelines and procedures for professional consultant selection, which is our request for proposal process, has been updated, and it was also incorporated into the city's purchasing policies and procedures manual. And that's in an effort so that departments go to one place for all of their policies, and we want to make sure that it's very clear what all the policies are. And this policy was updated to include our electronic bidding procedures, and we also clearly defined our appeals process, and we added an allowance for requests for qualifications when those are needed. And we also added a section for improved contract monitoring of professional services contracts. And this will require department head of the requesting department is responsible to oversee those payments. And then invoices must be signed or electronically approved by at least 2 staff members in the department that have actual knowledge of the project. And then these staff members must be involved in verifying the receipt of the purchase. And then this should ensure that we have adequate controls over our payment approvals for the more complicated contracts. So it's not as simple as, somebody verifying it's been received. We're making sure that at least 2 people on the project are aware that all the work was completed. The city's surplus property section of the manual was also updated, and this was to include a policy statement that departments should consider carrying costs and the potential for diminished market value when determining how quickly to dispose of surplus property. So procurement's proactively working with departments to make sure that we're selling and disposing of surplus property in a timely manner so that we don't let things sit and lose value. And the way we're doing this is we've been proactively selling things through online auctions, and this has resulted in additional revenue for the city. A few examples that we have, we had a barge that we valued at $1,600 in scrap metal. Somebody in Alaska thought it was worth $20,000. So sometimes we're finding that our junk is valuable to other places. So we also had a couple of garbage trucks that were used by the Parks Department. We thought they would bring $10,000 each, and one brought 32 and one brought 33. So sometimes we're finding, because we're online and we're reaching more than just people here in Oklahoma City, that we're able to bring in more revenue, and what we may not need, other cities, might find valuable. And what's good about the program is once a week they send us our revenue, and then we receive that and deposit it into the fund where the equipment was originally purchased. The travel policy and other business expense policies, were also incorporated into the purchasing manual, and we were trying to provide one document for departments to go to that contain all our policies and procedures. Most changes were related to required documentation for processing travel and other out-of-pocket reimbursements. We're going to have travel policy training. Our accounts payable is going to provide travel policy training to ensure understanding and compliance with the policy. And then other business expense policies that are within that include change funds, petty cash, moving expenses, vehicle use and reimbursement, and then there's other out-of-pocket expenses that are covered in that. And so our goal was to bring that all into one purchasing manual so the departments have one place to go look for procedures on how to process things. And procurement does provide mandatory training that's required in order to have any kind of purchasing security or to receive a purchasing card. And we kind of offer training depending on the needs of the department. In the fall, we're going to be doing updated purchasing policies and procedures training. We're going to be training departments on how to dispose of surplus property, and we're also going to start doing travel policy training. And so that's all, some of it starting this week, and some of it's upcoming in the fall. So that's all I have. Does anybody
All right. Comments or
questions?
All right, we're voting on item 9O. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9P is a resolution that has to do with the distribution of fund balance. Council like to comment on this expenditure, which would go to street resurfacing? Okay. All right.
Wait, I want to comment on it. I thought you were looking at me for a comment.
We have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 9P. Passes unanimously.
Can I comment now?
Yeah, you can comment now.
I have always had a problem with this. The idea that we'll pork it out and each one of us gets to pick troubles me in terms of the way it's done. I know it's been around for a long time, but the idea that we don't take the money and fix the worst streets in the city, I tell you, last year was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And it was that we didn't use the money to fix streets. We did a quiet zone with it. I mean, if the number one priority in the city is streets, why? Now, I'm reading the language, and I didn't have an opportunity to check the language this time against the language we've used in the past. The language in the resolution says to improve the condition of the city streets throughout the city. I would like a commitment that the money be spent on the streets. I looked into that myself. I looked at, I was tempted to divert some of the money to bus benches because I don't like the way we do the bus benches. But that kind of came apart based on how bus benches are funded, so I didn't go there. But the more I thought about it, and the more I think about it now, I think we ought to commit, at least the first thing, we ought to commit it to the streets. It says that's what we're doing, and that's what we ought to do. We shouldn't consider other things. I know Councilman Shadid had some things that weren't exactly streets. And I understand those are needs, but it seems to me if you don't have enough need for street repair in your ward, you ought to transfer it to mine or to John's, where I know darn well we've got plenty. And if it is about streets, if we're going to take this below 15%, which we are going to take it below 15%.
13 something, I believe, yeah.
Which that's phase two of my comments. Since Pat's not here, I need to talk about the economic stability of going below where we are, with considering we don't know what's going to happen over the next 60 months or so. We may have a couple of years of problems, although you hear good things, but you hear bad things also. But I would like to be sure that this is a commitment to do streets. I mean, I can't believe there are not streets in every ward that don't need it. There are some much worse than others. I discovered this last year that I had a street rated 0. I mean, I couldn't believe I had a 0 street. Boyd said, my assistant Boyd Fulton said that he had looked at for a long time and he'd never seen a street rated 0. He may have now searched 0 and found out that there are some other ones, but I had a street rated 0 that didn't get included in this list. It was done had to be done with separate funds. I just worry that if we're going to be responsive to the citizens who tell us streets are the number one priority, then we ought to commit to putting the money into streets. It just, these projects that help developers that don't really help streets, don't really help neighborhood streets, don't really help the streets, the arterial streets that serve people that need to get back and forth to work. If this is what we're going to do, we ought to do it. I personally would rather have it done from the top down and pick the zeros and do them first, wherever they are. But that would be difficult to build a consensus for that, I think.
We'll bring a list back of the street projects so the council can vote a resolution to approve those.
But I really am serious about, if it's streets, it says streets, it ought to be streets.
I think we hear you.
Okay.
So I guess for me, it's how do you define street? When we did this the last time when we took the fund balance in Ward 2, we put it towards the streetscape on Western Avenue, which I think was a very good use of funds. But part of that was to make sidewalks wider. Part of it was to put a chicane in the middle of the street. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you define streets as only serving private automobiles, or are streets, from building face to building face that would include sidewalk, asphalt, bus stops for our transit system. I mean, to me, a street should include all modes of transportation. And that would include the pedestrian, that would include public transit, and that would include the private automobile. I'm not sure that our surveys that ask the highest, I'm not sure that people are breaking it down when they say streets. They might mean different things. In our bond, 5/8 roughly of the GO bond is for streets, not 100%. Here we're making a decision to put 100% into streets, even though certainly you could argue, like the Lantana apartments we saw, we've got other needs that certainly parks, other parts that you could certainly argue should be. But here we've made the decision to confine it to streets. I think confining it just to the private automobile is too constrictive on something that's already very constrictive. But to confine it just to the private automobile seems too constrictive. And I think that if the transit department needs a connection to a bus shelter or needs additional funding for bus shelters, or there's some sidewalk need, I think that should be within the definition of streets.
Well, I'm sure I'm talking from a very provincial standpoint. We don't have any sidewalks in Ward 4, so I don't have people complaining about it. We don't have any streetscapes to speak of in Ward 4, so I don't have any constituents talk to me about it. What I have constituents talk to me about is streets, and I know what that means. That's a piece of asphalt in Oklahoma. It's a piece of asphalt about 30 feet wide that cars drive on. And that, I think when they respond to the survey, they may not be asked. You could be right, Ed. They may be, well, people in Ward 2 that have lots of sidewalks and have lots of streetscapes may be responding to that differently than people in Ward 4.
We have big deficiencies in sidewalks too. We have kids walking in the middle of the street, going to the elementary school. I mean, we have a lot, maybe more than Ward 4, but we've got serious deficiencies for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for public transit.
That makes my argument that maybe we shouldn't do it by wards. Maybe we ought to start at the top on the worst streets and go down. That's all. I know that I'm not going to convince everybody because everybody likes that. In fact, I have to admit I like sitting down and getting to figure out which streets get paved. I like that. But as a councilman, that's really not my job. My job as a councilman is to establish a citywide policy, not to get in and root for just my ward. And Jim and I have had this discussion, and I've had it started in the 80s. I had this discussion when we did similar things. I just don't think it's the right way to approach it from a policy standpoint.
Well, I think what you guys are articulating too is that each ward is significantly different, and what the two wards that deviated from the 30-foot asphalt repaving were two of the smaller inner locked wards. And so, I mean, you look at Ward 1, Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 7, well, we got roads that are way out, and I mean, a huge number of roads just because the population isn't as dense. And so there are different issues, but I can certainly, I kind of like taking all the 8 million and prioritizing it not by ward.
I could challenge you that to go with me into the wards that spent the money differently, and I can find you some streets in pretty bad shape.
Just to clarify, I'm in agreement with you on the pork barrel politics, that we don't have to divide it by ward. That's not to me, it's more important that you spend it on things, other modes of transportation other than the private automobile. It doesn't matter what ward for me.
Well, I apologize for making it that personal.
Larry?
Okay. I strongly disagree with the use of the word pork barrel politics. The residents of Ward 3 have a tremendous need to have their streets improved. And every dollar from the last year's $8 million, the $1 million that went to Ward 3, I would encourage the residents out there to drive on South County Line Road and Southwest 59th Street. There they will see where that money went. And this morning, there was a meeting between myself and Eric Winger, Public Works Director, where he presented the PCI ratings on every major arterial street in Ward 3, along with the latest traffic counts for those wards. and we discussed the stretches of streets, again asphalt, that needed the most based on the volume of traffic and based on the condition of the street. And I think it's a great way to give our residents hope that we are committed to meeting their number one requirement, and that is good streets, because we don't have the money elsewhere, and we won't have it till the GO bond issue comes out in 2017 or 18. This gives them some hope that we know what their needs are, and we're trying to meet them. Thank you, Your Honor.
And I think also too is that it gives the residents a voice. I mean, because whenever I'm meeting with Eric, what I'm telling him is what I'm hearing from neighborhoods of what the street's horrible, this street's horrible. And so, and the more times I hear this same street, I'm like, okay, well, that just kind of keeps moving it up my priority list. And so I think it does give each ward's residents a voice.
Yeah, in reference to, and I like your comments, Councilman McAtee, and I agree with Councilman White. The difference is if we just lump the $8 million into one category, Ward 7, in my view, would get left far behind, more so than what we are currently. Because if you look at the sidewalk plan, let's take a deep look at the sidewalk plan. Ward 2 gets a whole lot of sidewalks under the sidewalk master plan versus Ward 7, we're left out. So I do want to caution when we say, okay, let's just do the worst streets. And to some degree, I agree, but you have certain circumstances where it will cause other wards to get totally left out. For example, Ward 2 is more dense, and you have more people who have the ability to walk versus Ward 7. It may not be as dense, so we may not be able to get sidewalks. So I do caution when we talk about just putting the $8 million in one pot. What I did with the $1 million for Ward 7, I spent a little on the south side of town where Chavez is, where the school, where the streets are terrible, right in that area. And then I spent it in the eastern part of my ward, which oftentimes gets left out. And we did a collaboration with the county, where the county did the work, and we paid for the materials. And we was able to get almost 9 to 10 miles worth of work done out in the eastern part of my ward. Otherwise, that would not have been able to be done if we didn't split it up.
All right.
So that's why I do caution right there.
Okay, ready to move on? Thanks, John. Item 9Q is a resolution that would approve of the police policy on the use of body-worn cameras. And Chief City is here.
Yeah, Chief City can just kind of talk to us about it. As you know, we're looking at implementing a pilot study for 100 body cams. We had to hold off until we could get state law changed on this, which was we were able to accomplish. Councilman White, I think that might be one of the things we got accomplished this year through the legislature.
Right. Yeah, and I think the city manager's report will reflect, be able to explain a little bit about where we are and what our status is right now on that project. To start with our pilot program, or with at least our study of our vendors, we picked 3 vendors. The policy today is pretty simple. It basically just says we support, the use of body-worn cameras, that as a council that we're going to use body-worn cameras. We've also been working in conjunction with that for probably the last 8 to 12 months, also a procedure which is much more detailed and complicated as far as how those cameras will be used and what the responsibilities of our officers are in using those. So, and provide some accountability for that. So what you see here today is basically just in general that the city will be using body-worn cameras, and that the council supports that use.
Yeah, Ed?
So I apologize. I just got this. I just saw this from August 25th, so I'm trying to digest it as fast as I can. I think the legislature made a mistake or potentially made a mistake. I'm trying to digest all this because it is evolving, but to have open records to all film, to me, seems like a potential mistake. And I like very much the ACLU has a white paper that tries to, there's lots of privacy interests that need to be balanced. The public's, the police officers, the city, and you're trying to balance all these balls in the air. And so I'm reading through, and it looks like a lot of the things that the ACLU suggested be included are included in here. But I wanted to just ask you specifically, because their biggest concern was about consent, and specifically if the camera was introduced into a setting where privacy would be especially important, like someone's home. If you're going into someone's home and you're doing in-house recording, and when this seems to have some conflicting language about, and I'm looking at 188.3, when a body-worn camera shall be activated. And if it says it's in number 2 through 8, that the officer can do it, and then if 2 to 8 don't apply, the officer shall receive consent from the person prior to continuing to record. But then over here where it says where it shall not be activated, it says, in any situation where individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as their residence, a bathroom or a locker room, or a healthcare facility.
Right.
How do we reconcile all that?
Well, a lot of it's built in line with what the open records actually is, and what they did was there are some things that are private that will not, a public will not have the right to view from the videos. I mean, medical type situations, maybe if we're responding to in a hospital, anything that will reveal some type of medical condition or things like that of an individual. There's, juvenile information. There's things like that by state law are protected and cannot be released. And so our policy, our procedures are kind of built around that framework of what that open records law is. So officers will have the ability to turn the cameras on and off, and that you have to provide some guidance in those procedures as to when that'll happen. And part of when that will happen is when there is a privacy interest. On the other side of that is we still take calls for service. We may be dealing with somebody that has a serious medical issue, for instance, a mental health issue. At the same time, those will still be recorded. I mean, because we may have to end up in a use of force. I mean, that's one of the purposes of the body-worn cameras, is to be able to be completely open on how we use force, those types of things. That's what's kind of driven the body-worn cameras in the first place. The information then will have to be determined as to if there's things in that video, if it's going to be released, need to be redacted. So there are provisions within the open records law, the state law, and within our procedures to actually redact or at least, kind of scramble information within the video itself so it's not revealed. Like, it may be the person's face, but we'll still show the actual actions of the officer and the individual that we're dealing with. So going into somebody's home, initially we get a call for service. There is a privacy interest. The initial call, we will be videoing that. It'll have to be determined afterwards whether or not that information will meet those guidelines and whether or not it has to be released if it's requested by the media. So not everything that we video will fall within that category. There are a lot of exceptions.
I mean, I think the media is likely to abuse. I think the media understands the power of video. I was naive enough to think that I could get to my 14-year-old daughter before this point of view shooting in Virginia last week, and she told me as soon as she got home from school, everybody in the school was looking at the point of view video and watching the 2 people die on their screens. I mean, it's so powerful. The video is so powerful. The media knows how powerful it is, and they'll want to get all that video and put it on the news. And if there's celebrities or well-known people being pulled over or their homes, I could just see the potential for abuse. And I'm worried about the legislature's open record, the wide scope of it in that respect. So if something was, so there wouldn't be a situation where unredacted, unflagged, the ACLU's position is that unredacted, unflagged recordings should not be publicly disclosed without the consent of individuals. Is that?
There'll be certain information that you would have to have the consent for us to be able to release it. If it's covered or if it's protected within that open records law that was developed, then, if it were to be released, it would obviously have to have the consent of the individual to release that. So, because there are things that are protected, anything that would reveal some type of medical information or things like that. Juvenile information, we protect that now. Whether it's video or whether it's, in writing, it's written names, information, where they live, those types of things. Domestic violence victims, sex offenses, there's victims of sex crimes, that's protected. There's things like that that we will not release. And the law, and that was one of the issues when we were working with the legislators, is that the way the open law was written actually opened it up to everything. I mean, everything. And did not make exceptions for things that were actually in state law. It conflicted with things that were in state law already that were protected. So that was the reason for actually working with the legislators and trying to do something specific to body-worn cameras, so there was not that conflict of it had to be open, and there wasn't that argument that we would end up arguing constantly with the media as to whether or not it's open record information or not. So, that was kind of drove that in the first place.
So when you get consent, is it written consent, or is there a paper that we?
Yeah, anything, if there's something that's going to be at issue, you approve the hiring of 4 additional people for us to just manage this system. I mean, it's, putting the camera on and turning it on and off and downloading it's pretty simple, but having to tag it, having to pull it for evidence, having to respond to open records requests. If there's something in there that's questionable, then we would actually have to get a release from somebody to release that information. It'd have to be in writing and documented.
Can I ask you about obviously, and I'm not sure if this is the forum or if it should be an executive session, but I guess we're voting to approve it. So I just want to ask you about the supervisor and the monitoring videos whenever the supervisor deems that. The ACLU paper talks about that a lot of officers aren't in compliance. I mean, that it's as low as 30% compliance sometimes. So I can see where a supervisor might need to randomly monitor and confirm that these are actually being used as they're supposed to be used. On the other hand, they point out that that somewhere in some year in some city you could see where either a whistleblower or a union activist or somebody could be singled out and their video scrutinized by a supervisor. I'm not suggesting our department, and I know that you would go ballistic if you thought somebody was doing that. But in another city, I mean, as people are trying to work this out in different cities, that has been brought up as an issue.
Right. And it's usually, and the union has brought that up. The FOP's brought that issue up as to how it could be abused by supervisors. But there's still checks and balances in place. You'll know which supervisors are doing that. If you have a supervisor that's constantly pulling a video of one officer versus anybody else, then, that's going to be a clear indicator that maybe there's a problem there. And there is a process. I mean, the FOP is part of that process, that they're there to represent the officers on any grievances where that may occur. But then there's command, there's upward command. Officers can, if they feel like they're being abused by a supervisor, which in some cases it happens now without the video, then there's a process to determine whether or not that's the case or not. So, but I think it's very, very important that supervisors do have the ability to check on the officer's performance by use of the video. It's just one more tool to help make this department more accountable to the public we serve. We also have to make sure that the officers, or that the officers keep turning it on when they're supposed to and turning it off when they're supposed to. And so that's going to require quite a bit of monitoring. Something more than we could do and just having a single audit periodically. It's something that needs to be done on a regular basis by supervisors to make sure that those are being, because if they're not, and then an incident occurs, then it's really going to compromise that program if we find that out at a later date after an incident occurs. So it's very, very important, I think, for supervisors to be able to do that.
As I game theory it out, I mean, just based on what I know from both sides, if we approve this today, the FOP is going to challenge it based on historical statistical results they have, and last week's ruling on the AVL system, which frankly I'm not exactly sure why we can't monitor the speeds at which vehicles are driven, but apparently we can't do that randomly. But based on that decision last week, it would seem that there's going to be a high likelihood that they would win in arbitration. And that, to me, just feels like where we're headed.
And that's part of the process. I mean, the FOP has a right to grieve something they think is unfair or maybe, unfair practice or a working condition. And, I mean, they have a right to do that, and that's part of the process. We deal with that, on a regular basis between management and labor, the FOP representing labor. So, once it's passed, if they have an issue with it, they obviously can grieve that issue, and we go through the process, and we'll see where that lands.
Right. But their argument would be that it's a change in working condition, and that has to be part of the bargaining.
I think that's probably what their position would be.
Okay. Thanks.
Right. Pete?
I'm pleased that the city is doing it the way we've done it. In cities all across the country, when all these problems started to occur, they just started strapping cameras on people. No thought as to of the constitutional problems, no thought of the legislative problems. We're just going to, a knee-jerk reaction, we're just going to put cameras on people. And I think we're to be commended for doing it the way, the city is to be commended for doing it the way we're doing it. This is because it's an open process, it's being discussed, all the aspects of it are being discussed. And I think, I'm very pleased that we're doing it this way, frankly. I think, and however, I agree with you. If the union determines they need to grieve that, well, then they will, and that'll be part of the process, and we'll go forward and figure out what to do from there, whatever it is. But doing it in public, doing it the way we're doing it, you personally deserve some kudos for pushing it the way we've done it. I appreciate it.
It sounds like the FOP's in favor of cameras, and it sounds like everybody's in favor of moving forward.
Yes, the FOP's in favor of the cameras. We just really, this primarily there's this one issue of whether or not supervisors can randomly check those videos or look at those videos is really the only significant issue.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, ready to vote on item 9Q? Cast your votes. Passes 6-1. Item 9R is a resolution that would authorize our chief to allow his police officers to work inside the city of Moore's city limits for the Moore public school system. All right. Voting on item 9R. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9S would bring our retired firefighters back into the city's insurance program.
Mayor, the Voluntary Employee Benefits Association, the VEBA, has requested that we take back the retired firefighters that are presently covered by the VEBA. We transfer funds to pay for the cost of their insurance through the VEBA, and they've asked that that they come back into the city system. It's tangentially related to the negotiations going on with the IAFF and their desire to move in the direction they want to go with on health insurance.
All right, we're voting on item 9S. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9T, looks like we're good to go. We do not need executive session on this item. How about a motion to move it forward?
Do not.
Cast your votes. Item 9T passes unanimously. Item 9U, understand we do not need executive session on this item, so a motion to go forward would be in order. All right, cast your votes on 9U. It passes unanimously. Item 9V, understand we do need executive session. All right, a motion to move item 9V into executive session. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9W, understand we do need executive session. How about a motion to move it forward? Cast your votes. That item moves to executive session. Item 10 is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under item 10, claims recommended for denial? All right, how about a motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second on item 10, and it passes unanimously. We also have a list of items of claims recommended for approval. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any of these items? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes on 10A1, claims recommended for approval. It passes unanimously. Item 11 is items from council, and we have one that has come from Councilman Pettis, and this is up for final hearing today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be asking for the emergency. I just want to go ahead and move for approval.
All right, any comments or questions on item 11A before we vote?
I do. I appreciate that, Jester. I think that's good. I appreciated the ACLU. They had two members of the ACLU that were here at our city council meeting 2 weeks ago, and I appreciated their interest, and certainly they'll be watching, and I guess it really comes down to implementation. I am also, all my concerns about that any counselor or any individual would be able to single out a certain business, and it sounds like that there are procedures in place that would preclude that. I do want to say just one thing about, in October we passed this covering violence, and I think that was the biggest issue. Now we're adding drugs and prostitution, and I just urge some consideration of what problem we're trying to solve, specifically on the prostitution side. The drug side is a much bigger issue, and I get that. On the prostitution side, I guess that there's solicitation in parking lots. There's even sexual encounters in parking lots, and I guess that's what we're trying to stop with this ordinance. It's not going to work in my mind. There's prostitution that's been in Oklahoma City since the day of inception. It's always been here, it always will be, and we're not going to stop it. Much of the street prostitution has diminished because of the internet, and it's just much less, so it's much less of an issue. But we have to ask why we have people engaging in these kind of public, and why we continue to criminalize sexual behavior the way that we do in America in general, and Oklahoma City and Oklahoma in particular. And I don't think it works. I think we should stop criminalizing sexual behavior. We should look to other cities and countries throughout the world who are moving away from these kind of laws, and just stop sending mostly women to the county jail, putting all kinds of fees and fines on sex workers, adding additional burdens. Consider, at best, at the least, decriminalizing the actions of sex workers, and at best, legalizing it. Legalize prostitution and regulate it. The entire country of Germany does it. Toronto is moving that way stepwise. Mostly men can still face fines, but the women are decriminalized. In Asia, which is facing sexually transmitted diseases, which are increasingly becoming resistant to antibiotics, it will be devastating for the human species once that happens. And they recognize that sex workers are what's spreading this, and they're trying to get ahead of it. And the way you do that is you don't force people underground into parking lots, but you consider decriminalizing, legalizing, and regulating, and giving health checks. We are, in my mind, partially responsible for the violence, for the sex trafficking. If you legalized it and regulated it, you would, mostly women, would be much more protected. Instead of going to some violent, potentially violent pimp, imagine having the Oklahoma City Police Department as protection. And you would see much less of the sex trafficking, you would see much less disease transmission, and I know that that's, to this council, that's going to seem far out there, but it's not. It's, in terms of the world and how the world is adapting, it's not. And we actually, I think, are quite far behind. So I would just urge the decriminalization of sex work.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second? All right, we're voting on item 11A. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Items from council continue. John, you have anything else for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to take the opportunity to thank Oklahoma Watch for hosting a forum on police and minority communities. The forum was very well attended. I want to give special thanks to Councilman White and also Councilman Stone-Cipher and also our city manager for attending that forum. And the Oklahoman did an editorial urging more discussions about that. And I do agree with the Oklahoman, and Chief City and I, we do plan on having more of those public forums to talk about minority communities and the police. Last week I had the opportunity to sit in the Metrotech's Law Enforcement Cadet Program, which is a collaboration between the City of Oklahoma City and also Metrotech. And I do believe the cadet program is a great way to fully get minorities involved, minority youth involved in law enforcement. While sitting in the cadet program, just looking around, you had the majority of the students who are in the program are Hispanics, then followed by Caucasians, and then African Americans. So I believe the law enforcement cadet program is a great way to get more diversity in our police department. As speaking of diversity on our police force, I do believe we have to do a better job in promoting diversity, not only with the police department, but also the fire department. I do worry that we have over 1,000 police officers, but only approximately 80 officers are African American, and those 80 African American officers in a few years will be eligible to retire. Which, if that happens, if all of them retire at one time, that I think will have a negative impact upon our police department. Then, when we look at the makeup for the firefighter department, again, over almost over 1,000 firefighters, but less than 60 African Americans firefighters. So again, in a few years, half of them would be able to retire. So if all of them was to retire at one time, that does fill a gap. And this last, what caused me to really think about this, on tomorrow is the firefighters' graduation, and we just have one African American in that graduating class tomorrow, and that one African American did face some one racial incident in that class. So we as a city, we have to start talking about diversity for police and fire, but also the African American community and other communities also have to lead the way for promoting diversity and trying to get more minorities involved in law enforcement and public safety. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, John. David? No, thank you. All right, Pete?
John, in complimenting he and Chief City on the Oklahoma Watch thing. It was very good. And it probably ought to be done in southwest Oklahoma City, where we have a large Hispanic population that is in large part feels disenfranchised from the process in the same way it happens in northeast Oklahoma City. The idea also, I want to comment on this training program to try to groom young people, especially minority young people. That doesn't appear we need to worry about them Caucasians. I mean, they're in the majority everywhere, but we need to groom young people. And I think it does make a difference. I've had conversations with the police department about the difference in the reaction between people based on the race of the person that they have to talk to, and it's remarkable that the impact that has. I think I've said for a long time we need to try to find a way to make this council look like Oklahoma City, and we certainly need to find a way to make the police and the fire department look like Oklahoma City. Whatever we can do to make that happen, we ought to be trying to do.
All right, Larry?
Thank you, Your Honor. We talked a little bit earlier about vacant and abandoned properties, the Lantana being a poster child. I commend Councilman Griner for his success in moving that forward along with staff. In that regards, there is this coalition going on that involves the county assessor, involves the head of the real estate organization here in town, some staff members, and some other interested citizens. And I was wrong in talking to you, Jim. The meeting I was talking about, that's the goal of the coalition, to have a workshop in October to present a white paper, which in turn would then be passed along through staff to the council. One of the reasons for that is because we'll be working on the first part of next year, the budget for fiscal year 17, and it does take not only a willpower and time, but it takes a considerable amount of money to really put a dent in this whole subject area. With that in mind, next week there is going to be a developer out of Texas, Eureka Holding Company, come before the neighbors on Northwest 10th Street and ask for their support to petition us as a council to give a letter of support so that they can seek tax credits to rehabilitate the new poster child of apartment complexes on North 10th Street. That's the terrace apartments. They will move into #1 place as the poster child, and now thanks to Councilman Griner. So I would encourage the neighbors along Northwest 10th Street to put that down on your schedule next Monday night, I believe, at the Department of Human Services, to come to that meeting and listen to the presentation as they seek our support for tax credits to rehabilitate those apartment complexes. Thank you, Your Honor.
I just echo John and Pete's comments, and I think Paco Balderrama, the spokesperson, is doing a great job. Thanks.
All right, James?
I was going to mention Neighbors Night Out in 2 weeks. Encourage everybody to get involved in their neighborhood, figure out how they can help with whatever event that their neighborhood's doing. And I also echo the terrace apartments. It is another apartment complex on 10th Street that has struggled for years. It doesn't look as bad as Lantana, but it's got different issues. So, but that whole development is actually really encouraging. So, hopefully everything goes through like they say it's going to go. That's it.
All right. City manager reports.
We have Michael Byrne here today from the Oklahoma City Dodgers to give us a little bit of an update about their first season.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to share some of the good news with council related to how the season has gone for the Dodgers, our first season in operation under the new brand. We actually the team is home right now, finishing up what will be our last homestand that goes tonight through next Monday. So we are making a playoff push. We're actually playing the second place team at the moment, so hoping that a couple more wins will get us where we want to be. off the top, I wanted to share just a little bit about our business practices and what it is that we focus on as a management team when we're trying to make the smart decisions for our organization. We understand we have such an important role in the quality of life for people in Oklahoma City, and so we want to make sure we're providing great family entertainment. We have the opportunity between all of our inning breaks to really be more than a baseball game, and we take that part very seriously. And additionally, the unsurpassed customer service is an element that when people are entering into our facility, we want to provide them such an outstanding experience. It's important that our staff works hard to get people there for the first time, and we want to make sure that they have such a great experience they're coming back on a frequent basis. Our ticketing and concessions and all of the elements that we're providing to our fans, we want to make sure that they're affordable. Minor League Baseball, in its essence, is being able to touch so many people in our community, and that's so consistent throughout all 160 affiliated minor league teams. So affordability is an important one. On the community side, we take the opportunity very seriously to be very involved in our community, and whether that's doing things with the facility itself that can help our community, or utilizing the strength of our brand to be able to move some initiatives along. And I'll touch on a couple of those in a moment. And then our business partners. We want to provide them a great opportunity, provide an important ROI on their investment with our company, so that we can continue to reinvest in our product and provide a great facility and an outstanding product overall. Oops. This season, as I mentioned, we're actually on the final stages, final homestand, but we have had really unprecedented success. We are the top 15 in attendance across all of minor league baseball. That's out of 160 affiliated minor league baseball teams, projected to finish in the top 15. That 475,000 projected attendance mark will actually be a top 5 in all of 18 years in the current facility. So we've had such a tremendous response from our community to the Dodgers brand and to the season itself. The 23 sellout crowds is another high water mark. We had 16 last year. We really had our staff focused on 20 games this year, and they've been able to over-deliver and provide 3 additionals along the way to get those sellout crowds. And a full ballpark is great for the players to play in front of, and it's great for our community to be able to participate in all those games. Just a couple of pictures to capture our opening night. We were really thankful to have Tommy Lasorda, a Dodgers legend, come in town throughout the first pitch and interact with our fans. He does such a great job interacting with fans, signs every autograph he has a chance to sign. There's a perfect photo of the entrance, just the pent-up demand after we had rebranded for people wanting to come out to the ballpark. Our opening series, our 4-game series to start the season, was actually the best in attendance since 1999. So there was just a great response in those first 4 games. Up to my top right, the national anthem singer, we actually do an auditions in February, March, where we open up to the general public. We have over 200 folks come out and American Idol style audition for the national anthem, and she was the individual that won the entire competition. So it was great to have her on opening day. I touched on the rebrand. This was an important piece of our off-season. After the ownership change in the early fall, almost 1 year ago, we went to work studying the brand and making sure that we had the best connection to the parent club that we could have. And we did a lot of hours of deliberation on identifying what would be the great way to do a rebrand. And I'll share with you that we've had such a resounding response to it, better than I anticipated. The Dodgers they've been great partners in willing to share their marks, which are some of the most identifiable marks in all of sports, really. It has such an international brand. So for us to be able to directly connect with that, it's been outstanding. And we've seen particular response to what would be the top left corner, the OKLA mark. I see that around town very frequently. And it's one that has just such a unique tie-in. So we wanted to make sure that we did something that was unique and had a connection to Oklahoma, but also leverage that Dodgers brand. And we were able to really reach into that fan base. I've certainly heard a number of stories about longtime Dodgers fans and watching, whether it's Don Drysdale or Sandy Koufax or any number of Dodgers legends, just so many people that have been longtime fans and are so thankful that the brand is here. On the ticket sales side, our focus for our 20-person ticket sales staff has really been to drive as many of those peak nights as possible. I referenced we focused on 20 of them this season off the top, and we identified some other games along the way, such as a faith night where we had a pregame concert on a Sunday, and as we approached that game, we identified that's another one we could move into the sellout category with some extra attention. So our team has really focused on going out, meeting with businesses, finding creative ways for them to be associated with the product, whether that be helping them build new business or helping them reward or retain employees. And then we have a group sales staff, a 6-person staff that really focus on the specialty nights. So those could include our future Dodger nights, where youth sports teams are showing up in uniform, taking a parade around the warning track prior to the game and being out there for the national anthem. Becomes such a unique experience for those youngsters and hopefully builds lifelong baseball fans. The Faith Night was a great success this year, allowed us to really make a connection with a number of the local church groups and provide something that really spoke to their interest and want to be connected to the team. On the entertainment side, this is a part of our business that we take very seriously. The chairman of the organization that puts together the ownership, Peter Gruber, is originally a filmmaker, and so he has this strong sense of wanting to entertain our fans. And it's great to have people that want to come out and keep score and really focus on all the every pitch and every out. But we want to be an entertainment venue for those that are just looking for something to do on a Friday or Saturday night as well. So we've got a focus from a director of entertainment's point of view that she is scripting everything that's going on between every inning. She had the monumental task of working with a mascot design company in that short time frame that we rebranded to come up with new mascot concepts and Brooklyn and Bricks and get that to fruition by opening day. And so she works with about a script of, or an inventory of close to 200 different skits and between video bits and all those different things to keep the experience fresh. And then occasionally she'll bring in some outside acts. So you see the Superstars there, which is an inflatable character where they combine an athlete and an animal. So Harry Canary Jr. and I believe that's Manatee Ramirez there. They do a great job. We brought them in a couple times. The picture there in the center with X-Pogo, extreme pogo stunts, which I didn't realize would be as interesting as it turned out to be. Our fans really loved the in-between inning acts they were able to provide. Related to the community, I mentioned that this is an opportunity for us to really focus on those that are coming out and supporting our team. And thankfully, we have a number of our business partners that want to affect the quality of life in Oklahoma City. So we have some great programs. The Hometown Heroes program, we're able to, every game, all 72 games, we are doing behind-the-scenes tours for families that may have a loved one deployed. So they can come out to a ball game and really just enjoy an experience that maybe lets them turn that piece off that mom or dad are in harm's way. And then we also do 2 large celebration nights, which you see leadership there from Tinker Air Force Base addressing our crowd and thanking them and letting them know how integral they are in the success of Tinker. On the Grand Slam Mission, that's a program we've really focused on celebrating some of the history of baseball in our community. The individual on the left in the white shirt, Jim Gentile, is a former Major League Baseball player that lives in Edmond. So we were able to have him come out throughout a first pitch and recognize him. But we also, through that program, do youth sports clinics. We do education for those that are coaching our youth. So our coaching staff helps them build programs for how to best run a practice and things of that nature. And our groundskeeper even works with those that are maintaining the facilities around town to let them know what are the key things to do on a limited budget. We also annually do the OBI blood drive, which we did close to the July 4th holiday again this year and had the highest level of participation that we've had in that event. Our Home Run for Life program, we take the opportunity one time a month to identify someone that has a great story of rebounding from a medical illness or a debilitating injury. And having them come out middle of the game, we have the players line up, as you see in that photo, and invite them to come to home plate. We tell their story and let all 8,000 people stand up and cheer for them in terms of being able to recover from that event. They get the chance to run around the bases and celebrate that home run. Our Community All-Stars program, we identify nonprofits in the area that we want to recognize. We take about one a month and make sure that volunteerism for their nonprofit is recognized and thanked in a very public way. Additionally, this season, we took the opportunity to create a nonprofit. So we established the OKC Dodgers Baseball Foundation, which is going to focus on families, providing educational opportunities for our youth, and also focus on first responders. So we had a couple programs that have helped us launch this, but we were really get really up and running in earnest this off season as we transition someone into a sole focus of overseeing this. But to really get it kicked off, we partnered on the Oklahoma Standard Night and wanted to have a focus at the ballpark, raising awareness for that initiative. And you'll see there Chief Ryan, Deputy Chief Kuhlman, both threw strikes as they got a chance to come out and throw out the first pitch. All of our staff, including our fields crew, were supporting the Oklahoma Standard initiative. We had an opportunity on the concourse to get people to sign up and commit to the initiative, as well as raise some funds for schools to be able to go to the museum. And so we affected about 150 students, raising some funds that night. And then another program that was newly established this year was our Family Night Out program. We went out to all of our business partners, all of our vendors, all of our season ticket holders, and asked them to donate money to provide opportunities to families that don't get the opportunity to come out to the ballpark. So we had a resounding success. It was over 1,600 families affected by this new initiative, and anticipate carrying that forward into next season as well. A couple ballpark improvements I wanted to touch on. We took the opportunity to really affect the family experience at the ballpark. So there was a new 3-story tall structure that was built just beyond right field, and it's been a great place for families to spend a couple innings, burn off some energy. We also did a little bit of a toddler town there with some climbing apparatus, a baseball cap, a giant glove, the giant baseball bat, utilizing some space that was really underutilized, and making sure that we can affect as many youngsters at the ballpark as possible. We also made an investment in the merchandise store. After as the process of going through the rebrand, we had the store shut down. We had the opportunity to really give it a facelift, the first facelift in probably 15, 16 years. And so we've just had a resounding response to the new marks and the new look of the store. As you all know, we converted some space in our left field bleacher area into this left field deck, a hospitality space that the city was a partner on in providing that opportunity. It's been a great space, and we have groups that will use that for company picnics, for recognition nights. It has, as you see there, kind of picnic-style seating, and then a great drink rail up on the second level. And so groups of anywhere from 75 to 150 can utilize that space on any given night, and it's been full almost 100% since it's opened. One other space is our four-top seating, and this is also in partnership with the city that we utilized funding via a facility fee that we established in 2015 to provide this amenity. So there are 4 tables that have this half-moon shape with the fixed chair that provides a really unique seating experience at the park. So people can still have the opportunity to converse and really not have to look down the road to be in touch with somebody. They really have that kind of communal atmosphere. It's been great. We offer it for opportunities, whether it's ticket packages for some folks or also the ability to use it on a one-night basis. Going into the off-season, we'll have phase 2 that we anticipate here in the not-too-distant future that'll grow that from 4 tables to 10 by opening day next year. Other improvements, we listened to our fans and wanted to partner with Pepsi and Waste Management for an opportunity to do some recycling at the ballpark. So we have this program that launched this season, and it's one that I'm particularly proud of and glad we were able to get launched and off the ground. In regards to special events, we understand the value of that facility and know it needs to be more than just the 72 baseball games that the Dodgers are playing. So we want to keep it as active as possible. We have a high school baseball program where last spring we had 29 different high school games that were played at the ballpark. We also had the spring state championships, and here in just a few weeks we'll have the fall state championships that will be played there. Bedlam baseball is great when you get the collegiate atmosphere out at the ballpark. People really enjoy following their teams. It's a spirited night for sure, but it's one that's been a great success over the years. The nonprofit side, we've done somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 different nonprofit walks or runs. In about a week or so, we'll have the kickoff to the United Way campaign. So we have such a versatile facility that we want to make sure we're taking advantage of in as many ways as possible. Snow tubing, of course, coming up this winter. We actually hired a new position where someone focused solely on non-baseball events. She joined our staff in January to help us maximize the use of the ballpark. On the field, I mentioned we are making a run towards the playoffs. We actually have the best record in the Pacific Coast League currently. We're first place in our division. And we have one of the best prospects in baseball. Baseball America says he's the #1 prospect. He's been playing infield positions for us, shortstop and third base. And last night, we had a young pitcher start for us for the first time in AAA, who's also a highly touted prospect. So it's great for our fans to be able to come through and see some of the most outstanding baseball talent that you can find. And with that, I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions, but we have had such a successful season, and the community has really embraced this new opportunity to be associated with the Dodgers, and are thankful for all the people coming out and making this year one of the best we've had.
Community involvement too. It's been terrific, and congratulations. The playoffs start.
They would start next week. We will play through Monday. Our first
so regular season continues through Monday.
That's right, through the 7th.
And those are home games?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then should we qualify for the playoffs, the first potential home game would be that Friday, next Friday.
Okay, and you have the best record in the league?
That's right.
Yeah, and so you would host?
No, we wouldn't. It's actually predetermined before the start of the season, so our opponent would host, even though we have the best record. So we would get game 3 and possibly game 4 and 5 if necessary.
Okay, so the first round's a best of 5?
Yes, sir.
And so you're guaranteed at least 1 game and potentially 3? Okay,
right.
All good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to take a minute to introduce LaShawn Thompson. LaShawn Thompson, come on up, sit. Yeah. LaShawn is our new courts administrator. She began her duties yesterday. She's a long-term courts employee. She has an undergraduate from the University of Central Oklahoma in criminal justice and a master's degree from the University of Oklahoma in human relations.
That is correct.
Okay, I'm glad I got that right. And I'm really thrilled to have her. I think she'll be a great addition to the management staff, the executive staff at the City of Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
And you have a friend. You have a friend here today.
I do. I introduced him, Chief Thompson. It's my husband back here. To the mayor, Mr. Couch, and council members, I just want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we've covered the body-worn cameras, but if we want to go further on that, I do have staff here that can address some questions on that. But we did cover that earlier in the meeting. And then I also have the August sales tax check. August sales check was a little stronger than July. It was 3.3% over last year. And excuse me. It was 2.4% over last year. We're still down a couple percent below target for the year, and of course, things are a little volatile. The Dow is down 300, points today. Gas was oil was at 50, then it's down to 40, then it's back up to 47, and a lot of unknowns in the future. But
up 2% year to year. This check. Okay, I think that's one we got to continue to watch because we got a lot riding on it. Whether or not we can keep that expectation up. Citizens to be heard. We have a few people that have signed up to be heard today. I'll ask them to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. The first is Jolanda Ketron. Good morning, Jolanda, and we'll need your name and address for the record.
My name is Jolanda Ketron. I live at 3228 Northwest 35th Street.
Okay.
I'm here today to bring to the forefront the issue concerning the drainage ditch and spillway and easement areas along I-44 at 35th Street. This lacked the attention and has led to an increased cost and manpower to correct the deterioration of both the spillway and the drainage ditch. Workers arrived yesterday and started to clean up. The expected completion of this is 2 days. Concerning the amount of work in our day, however, the neighborhood has determined that this will take through Friday. The action is currently underway. It's costing the City of Oklahoma City Public Department and citizens at least tenfold what it would have if we had maintained this to begin with. We would just like to make sure that going forward in the future that these areas will be maintained and will keep the cost to the citizens down.
All right. Thank you. Sandino Thompson.
Hi, Sandino Thompson, at 723 Northeast 19th Street. I'm going to speak quickly. I wanted to come before you today. Mayor Cornett and council members, I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak, to talk about the maps for neighborhoods, and really just to talk about what that means to me for Ward 7. I am the grandson of bus drivers and housemates who came to Oklahoma City because they felt like it was a place of hope and opportunity in the early history of the city. I'm a son of two Dungy High School graduates, one taught by Miss Clara Looper and participated in lunch counter sit-ins in the 50s. My mother was the first person in her family to graduate from university, Oklahoma State University, where I also graduated with an engineering degree. I'm very much a product of the strengths and weaknesses, I think, and the strengths and challenges, let me say, that Oklahoma City has experienced. I was taught, like a lot of us, to be principled, stand up for what you believe in, and work hard for the change you want to see in the world. And I think too often that meant standing up for those who didn't believe that this city was a place of hope and opportunity for families like mine. Too often it was protests and marches in the streets for discrimination, lawsuits against Jim Crow laws, fighting the efforts of redlining and urban renewal that seemed to undermine a lot of the strongest elements of the black community throughout the history of the city, and really had a significant impact on our cultural imprint on the city. So I didn't come before you guys today to dwell on that past, but really just to acknowledge it, to let it inform the deliberations for the future. I'm here as a reversal of the brain drain that I've heard a lot of people talk a lot about. I returned home after initially being a little disillusioned and a little challenged, thinking that I could find opportunities maybe better in states like Texas and Florida. But I'm also here because I witnessed remarkable progress. This city has made a lot of strides under current Mayor Cornett, his two predecessors, and this body over the past 20 years that I've personally found astonishing, and I'm here because I believe in the future. I think we're ready to move past the ideas of protest and the perception that there's an us and there's a them, and focus on progress for this community. I think that that MAPS is an opportunity, that the success of MAPS is an opportunity for us to leverage to do something that reconciles the past with renewed investment in the future and renewed investment in underdeveloped parts of the city, such as Ward 7. We see investment in things like connectivity as a chance to heal some of the things that have happened in the past, and really to bring the community together. In the past, we have capital investments like freeways that really led to the division of some of the most critical neighborhoods in the Ward 7, like Hassman Heights, the Edwards communities, I-235 with Deep Deuce, leaving these neighborhoods devastated, divided, scarred by concrete thoroughfares with some very unhealthy after effects for our community, and a monolithic sort of car-centered future that really disconnected us in a lot of ways. But we also see connectivity as an opportunity for investment now in infrastructure, seeing the things that have taken place with corridors like 10th Street as mixed-use gateways from the northeast side to the Innovation District, to downtown, to midtown, and an opportunity to connect that part of Oklahoma City with this Oklahoma City Renaissance. 23rd Street as a revitalized commercial corridor, an opportunity to connect that as a gateway to our state's capital. But maybe more importantly, we see this opportunity for investment in existing community assets like the Katy Trail, the Adventure Line, the parks and public spaces that we have, and really an opportunity with things like investments and maps in neighborhoods to create urban parkways that can connect us in all kinds of ways, from different aspects of transportation, from pedestrian-oriented activity that can connect this community from Bricktown to the Adventure District. I believe strongly that Maps for Neighborhoods that focuses on connectivity, culture, and health is the next step for this city. I think it has the potential to bring the city together in ways we can't even imagine right now. I think it provides space to unlock ideas and innovation. I think it allows inspiration and engagement of Gen Xers and millennials, a lot of things that are considered key to 21st century cities. And I think we can once again have the country's eyes on us to create the kind of quality of life that ensures that Oklahoma City continues to be the place of hope and opportunity that's been for my family for generations in the future. And I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I ask really that you guys consider this idea as we deliberate and think about the future of the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandino. Michael Hinton?
Thank you, Mayor, Your Honor, and Council. I'm Michael Hinton of 333 Northwest 5th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73102. I come here to address on an issue from item 9C of your agenda today regarding texting while driving. I gather this issue has been decided to be commensurate with the state of Oklahoma, of which fully I support, and this is an issue that has been long overdue to be addressed. And I was here, I believe, my memory serves me correctly, it was my crazy schedule, but I was here the last council meeting to address this issue on texting while driving, and this has been a concern of me for quite some time, and I am standing as a citizen to be heard in full support of whatever that has to be done to address this issue, especially to enforcing the law. And I thank you, the folks of this council, for addressing this issue, and I thank you for allowing me a moment to be heard.
We have executive session. We'll be back.